Welcome to the 128th episode of Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we are covering shows that aired during weeks 12 and 13 of the winter 2020 season. As always, we include timestamps in the description of the YouTube video and podcast feed if you only want to hear about one or two specific shows, because we always spoil everything. That's what this podcast is about. My name is Leo, and Aerith is hotter than Tifa, and the new Ghost in the Shell on Netflix is the best show in the franchise. Deal with it. Also with me are Kat and Bcom. Did I say her name right?
Aerith? Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I mean, some people would say her name is Erisu or something, but yeah.
Oh, God. I meant to ask you before we started, but I forgot.
I'm glad you're on the Aerith ship. It's a lonely ship. There's about 5 of us here.
Yeah, I don't... It's been too long since I played Final Fantasy VII. I don't really remember.
Well, I mean, Tifa is just like... She's the fucking cool martial arts wizard with a rockin' bod, and Aerith is just like the, "Hi, Cloud, I'm one with the planet, hello." And so, there's a big difference between them. The Ghost in the Shell part, though, holy shit, I watched the first 2 episodes of that on Netflix.
Is it live action or
It's
animated?
CG, it's CG anime.
Oh, it's CG? Oh, no.
And there was a lot of CG in the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, but like for the most part, it was 2D animated, except outside of like the Tachiomi tanks or whatever.
Is it straight up just called Ghost in the Shell on Netflix?
Yeah, it's Ghost in the Shell SAC 2045. It's supposed to be like a sequel to standalone complex, and it is fucking awful so far. Oh my god, the story is so bad. They're fighting college football players who are upset about their student debt not being canceled.
Wait, what? No,
I'm
they're
not fucking
That's
joking.
not true.
I am
That's not
not
true.
fucking
Bcom, you
joking.
are fucking with me. No.
I wish I was fucking with you. Okay, so I don't think that's the greater threat. They're these college football players are working for somebody, I guess.
Who approves that? That's
I don't know, man.
That's terrible.
Shinji Aramaki approves it, I guess. I don't know.
holy shit.
Anyway, that was fucking wild. Couldn't believe that when I was watching.
Are they just trying to comment on American politics or something? I don't understand.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Like, the only people who will watch this is Americans, because, Japanese people aren't watching this bullshit. So, what can we do? What can we make the focus that they would really be interested in?
College football, apparently.
Maybe, and student debt.
I bet Netflix was like, we'll fund it, but it's got to be about this.
It's got to be politically woke, okay?
Yeah, wow, that surprised the shit out of me.
So as far as nonsense, Leo, what have you been up to? Why don't you go first?
Oh my god, since I've been unemployed for the past couple weeks, I've been playing so much COD. It's ridiculous. So much Warzone, and then we'll go back and play multiplayer. But the multiplayer modes in COD, there's like fucking 10 of them or more. There's a lot. But our favorite one so far is the it's not called brackets, it's not called tournaments, but you get the idea. Basically, It loads you into the a straight up bracket system with 16 teams, and you just fight until you get to the championship. But the mode it uses is called gunfights, which is super, super cool. So it's teams of 3, and both teams get the same random weapons, and you go 2 rounds, and then the weapons change. And and their rounds are pretty quick because it's just like one kill, which team can eliminate the other team the quickest. And it's just really fun, and you do the call-outs and stuff. But we were playing just the other day, and this one guy was just like destroying us. The one guy on this one team was just destroying all 3 of us. And we were like, what the fuck? But the cool thing about COD is you get a kill cam, so you get to see, what they did. This dude was cheating bad. He was watching us through walls and would know the exact moment we would peek and headshot us, whether we were crouched or standing. Like, we would see him move his cursor down a wall, we'd come out and he'd go bam and kill us. And we're like, you're cheating, buddy. You do not know we are there. and we end up reporting him. But other than that, it's a super fun mode. But I did get to actually go and do the Fortnite concert, so that was super dope.
Oh, the Travis Scott thing. I saw like video of that. And I was like, that's really cool, actually. Like
that was crazy. Kat, you would have liked it.
Really?
Yeah. So like, you jump into Fortnite, and basically, like, we went to me and my buddy. We went to the last showing, which was at like 6 o'clock on Friday or something like that. And so you could load into the lobby 30 minutes before, and while you're in the lobby, you know, it puts everybody into 2 different teams of like 100 versus 100 or 50 versus 50, whatever. Okay. And you're just kind of goofing off. And there was these 5 statues. If you visited the 5 statues and went to the concert stage, you got like some cool skins and shit like that, and some emotes, which was really neat. And that's what you were doing before the event started. So 6 o'clock rolled around, the event starting, everybody's standing on the stage or fucking getting the new emote they got where that's the mic stand on fire and they're shaking it over their heads and everybody's going crazy. And then this big planet thing with a speaker inside comes fucking rolling in, and then just shit went fucking bananas. It was, I don't know what they were doing over there at Fortnite or whatever, but they went balls to the walls with like special effects, and the whole place is going crazy. Throwing you, it's like making your guy like bounce around and fly over here, and the whole time like there's a giant Travis Scott fucking dancing and playing music, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? At some point you're underwater. It was
I saw that part. That looked really cool too. Yeah.
That was cool. We will have Kat watch this during our break because she's going to be like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, it was really cool. Like I think that they should do some more stuff like this where it's like the audience like interacts with the fucking concert. Like that's so cool.
So they've done they did like a Marshmallow, I can't think of his name, Marshmallow Head guy. He had a concert, but it was nothing like this. And they also had a Star Wars event that I went to.
Well, yeah.
That one was pretty cool too. So like, what the cool thing about that was promoting like the new Star Wars movie, and like they had like TIE fighters flying around, and they had announcements, and we actually had 4 options, and we got to vote what cutscene we wanted to see.
Okay.
So that was kind of a fun interactive part. But I can't wait until when we come back from break and Kat's watched it and we get to hear her opinion, because it was insane.
I saw some employee from Epic Games saying, like, we basically did this from home. Like, we made all of this from home.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
I mean, it's just showing how much can really be done from home if you try hard enough.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of employers are realizing this right now.
Yeah, there's going to be a legacy of like, well, but maybe we don't have to do everything in person, which will be interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have to come in today? No. Oh, okay, so... I've been watching ESPN's The Last Dance documentary. So this is a documentary from like the same producer who did documentaries on Allen Iverson's basketball career and like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's basketball career. And I think he also was part of the movie like Coach Carter and stuff. So fictional stuff. Or no, that's non-fictional, but like, you know, it's telling the stories of basketball is this guy's thing basically. So he finally landed Michael Jordan. And it's not just Michael Jordan. Like, I've seen the first 4 episodes now. It's like the story of the 90s Bulls who won 6 championships and have like this legacy as the greatest team in the history of basketball. Besides maybe some Celtics teams and like the early times of basketball, if you want to talk about them too, who are pretty great. So it's so freaking good because it has so much... There's so many interviews with the players, and it has so much like archival footage from the time of like behind the scenes with the team. And I think my favorite part about it is just I didn't understand the level to which like Michael Jordan kind of struggled before he became great.
You've never seen Space Jam?
Oh,
he's out there on the lonely basketball court, and he can't fucking hit shit.
Like, so I knew the story about like how he got cut from his high school basketball team and he had to like practice over the summer, and then he came back and he was great, and then he got even better in college and won the national championship at North Carolina. But once he got into the NBA, okay, so they go over that in the first episode too, and then like But then once he gets to the NBA, he doesn't have. He's great, like immediately. He's really good, but he doesn't have the people around him to win, and so he just goes through these periods where he's like clearly starting to become the best player in the NBA, but he doesn't have the team to win, and he keeps losing. And one of the best parts was like episode 3, which talks about Dennis Rodman's impact. And Dennis Rodman was on like the Detroit Pistons in the early 90s, who were like the biggest rival for Michael Jordan's Bulls. And literally the game that the Pistons played back then, they were known as the Bad Boys. And they would literally just beat the shit out of you on the court, like to prevent you from winning. Like I'm not even joking. Like
what
they would just
they would
start throwing elbows and shit.
Well, so they would throw elbows all the time, but then they would also just start fights. They would like throw people. Like once you got up into the air, they had a set of rules for Michael Jordan. It's like, okay, we're gonna push him towards the middle of the court to keep him away from the baseline. If he gets to the baseline, we're gonna knock him out of the air and put him on the fucking ground. Like, and so NBA refs at the time, like, this is before all sorts of rule changes came in because of these guys. They would just like let the players play, and so Jordan lost the Pistons 2 years in a row in like 89 and 90. And like after the 90 playoffs, like instead of the Bulls going on vacation for the summer, they all just went straight to the fucking weight room for like an entire off season. Michael Jordan put on like 15 pounds of muscle and became like a fucking tank. And then they swept the Pistons in the playoffs the next year.
Awesome. That's like a video game. It
is. It's such a cool story. Oh my god. You would love Dennis Rodman's life too. His life is crazy. Like, because it jumps back and forth between 1998, which is the last season that they won the championship, and like the rest of their careers. And so like in 98, Dennis Rodman, I'm going to talk about it in like Haikyu actually. I'm going to relate it to one of the characters there. He like lacks motivation. And so he leaves in the middle of the season to go to Vegas with Carmen Electra and fuck around for like 4 or 5 days. And like the team is like, I guess we'll let him go, but he's probably not going to come back because like they know he needs to blow off steam. But it's just it's so crazy. The whole team is so nuts, but they're also some of the greatest basketball players ever. It's such a cool thing to watch. I highly, highly recommend it. There's still like 6 episodes to go, so it could get even better.
Oh wow! Okay, well,
yeah.
I'll
What's it on?
ESPN. Sunday nights they air like 2-hour-long episodes at a time, and there's definitely some reruns of it. So if you can like try and look up and track those down.
But I don't have cable. I'm not like gonna go find it.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise you'd have to watch it on like the ESPN Plus app or something. Like I don't know. Yeah,
I guess. But it is cool they're doing.
It should be on Disney Plus, shouldn't it? Since they own ESPN.
Oh, they do own ESPN.
Yeah.
I know it's on like Netflix everywhere in the world except for like the North American places, I think.
That. I hate when Netflix is like everywhere except the US. Fuck the US. Have fun without it. And then your friends in Canada are like, oh, we watched that weeks ago. And you're just like, fuck you.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah,
I'm really considering getting one of those like change your server VSPN things.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being an American. We get like short staff like all the time. Sucks.
Yeah.
What about your nonsense, Kat?
Well, okay, so first I've been doing a lot of walking, and I've never seen the Monon Trail, which is in Indiana. I don't know. Basically a walking path. I've never seen so many people
She's done
walking.
so much walking, she delayed a recording.
That's funny.
But I've never seen so many people out walking in my freaking life. Like, people are just like, oh, there's nothing else to do? Okay, we'll go out walking now. Like,
yeah.
And they keep shutting down like parts of a trail to try and keep people from walking. Mm-hmm. And then people just walk around it. There's no stopping people, apparently, including me. So
nice.
I've been doing a lot of that. I've been watching a lot of Attack on Titan because I finally got my old as fuck boyfriend to watch anime, which is it's a different thing to introduce someone who is older, who is actually an adult to anime, as opposed to a teen. So I had him watch Attack on Titan, and I've been rewatching it as I introduce it to him. And it is very strange to to go back because there are a lot of hints in that show that you would not get unless you had already watched the show over. Like, there's parts where, like, Bertolt and Reinar are, like, talking in the corner or something, and, like, you didn't even pay attention to that. But now that I know, I'm like, oh, fuck. That's what, like, stuff like that.
How is your boyfriend reacting to it?
A lot of times he's like, but I don't understand. So, like, does this mean this? Like, what about this? And I'm like, I can't tell you that.
You're gonna have to wait 3 seasons. Sorry.
You have to wait 3 Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
There's a lot of like, but why haven't they gone to the basement? Like, that was the whole point. And I'm just like, yes, now you understand 6 months of the anime community's life. Why haven't they gone to the basement? None
you
of
go
us
to your boyfriend,
know.
and you're like, are you familiar with the concept of edging?
Yeah.
They're gonna edge that basement for a long time.
Yes. So that's been interesting just because I didn't realize how many like hints they put in the show that you just can't even understand unless you watch it over again.
Right.
So, makes sense.
That's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, we've almost finished it. So that went fast.
Nice. Well, that was fast. Yeah.
Oh, you've been... Well, I mean, I guess you got the time to binge watch pretty hard right now.
And the funny part is, I thought that I would have to be prompting him, like, "Hey, we should watch more Attack on Titan." But like, once I got past like episode 4 or 5, he'd be like, "So, are we gonna watch more Attack on Titan?"
Nice.
So I'm like, "Oh, I don't even have to prompt
What are you going to move on to after this?
Part of me wants to do Black Lagoon.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites.
That's a good show. I like that. I just watched that recently, actually.
Yeah, that is a really good show.
For the first time?
Yeah, for the first time. I'd never seen it.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I've really rewatched it like 5 times.
It's a really good one. It's like, I mean, I'm glad you finally watched it. But there's some times like that. Or Cowboy Bebop. I don't know. Cowboy Bebop.
That would be I think that's a good one. Yeah, for sure. Even Samurai Champloo is pretty good. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But part of me also wants a dub. But, you know, there's some stuff that, like, I think that there's a dub, but then I go to look and I can't find it. And et cetera,
Are you watching Attack on Titan as a dub?
I couldn't find it on Verve in dub. I love.
So he's watching with subs.
Yes.
Stick with it. That's my advice.
Well,
Just stick with subs.
To train a proper anime person, you're supposed to. But I feel like I could probably get him more into more things if I gave him more dubs. So
you could take him straight into Steins Gate. That's got a great
I did
dub.
think about Steins Gate. Steins Gate is very popular.
Yeah.
So.
Great dub, too.
This needs to be a segment. You keep us updated with Kat.
Or I thought about the Orphan show that we watched a few seasons ago.
Promised Neverland.
Yes, because it's so good and it's so like new, and a new season will come out soon. But I can't find the dub for that either. And I know they dubbed it because when I went to
it's
LAX,
dubbed.
I mean, like they talked to the dub actor, so I know that it's dubbed. I just can't find it anywhere dubbed.
I think it's on Funimation, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
I looked on Funimation. It's not on
I want
there
you
either.
to throw like a really random one at him, like a comedy, like I cannot. The 3 girls.
The 3 girls. Oh, the
Sobiyasu
weird
Base?
one. Oh,
Yeah. I want you
don't.
to throw that at him just to see what he thinks, if he even thinks it's funny.
Oh man, I don't know. I have to like mix a little bit of action or something in there.
Well, there's plenty of action in that.
That's true. It is interesting. I don't know, but yeah, that's. I think it appeals to people so much because everyone in their has that person in their life like they want to introduce to anime, but they're like, but how do I do it without making them hate it more?
That's the big thing. You're like, God, if I give them the wrong one, they're gonna even think worse about anime, and I'm fucked. I'll never get them to watch anything else ever again.
Yes. So that I think that's why so many people are so interested in it. It's just because it's like, ooh, but like this interests me because I've also tried this, and like I don't know. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's fun, but yeah, I don't know. Attack on Titan is better the second way through. I found out basically.
Cool. Yeah, that's the stuff I was like trying to point out in like season 3, part 2. Of just like all the callbacks, and I was like, "Oh shit!" It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'll keep you updated. All right. What about Chihayafuru? You update us, Bcom.
I will update you on the final episode of season 3 of Chihayafuru. Episode 24, when wind sends waves crashing. Okay, so we're still in the wake of Taichi's fucking bombshell confession. And Chihaya's lost in thought, and she meets with this academic advisor who's like, you're telling me that you want to be a high school teacher, but you're saying that just because you want to become like a club advisor. Doesn't seem like the best reasoning for this career path. Like, you could just become like a literature student or something, get a literature degree. And she's just like kind of lost, and like I don't know. Meanwhile, Taichi's mom finally gets the news that he wasn't number 1 in exams. Oh my god. And she's about to start like scolding him like usual, but Taichi just like walks past her and says like, I quit the club, so my next exam should be better, and just keeps walking. And she's like, wait, what? So yeah, it's time for new students to join, and club advisor Miyauchi is like worried that without Taichi they've lost their guiding hand, and all the third years are like worried about entrance exams, so they can't really take over the club. And into that void, Sumire steps in, and she like really takes the role of mentor to these new students, which was kind of cool. I would never have expected this when she first joined the show in season 2, when she's just like, all she cares about is like Taichi and like her appearance, like her beauty, trying to be like pretty for Taichi. Like, she doesn't care about Karata at all when she first joins the club, but now she's all about it. And I think she kind of feels the responsibility to take over for Taichi, because she learned how important he was to the club as she watched him over the past season. So the new club members include like 2 girls, Mikuhara, who's class D, Midori Tamaru, who is class A. Midori is like the whiny sister who beat Retro-kun like a couple episodes back, which is kind of funny that she's in the club now. And there's 2 boys, Sota Hashidate, who's class D, and Togo Namida, who's like a complete beginner. And so after we're introduced to them, we see Chihaya, and she like breaks down crying in the hallway because she just can't deal with everything that's happened. She runs into the literature teacher, and they start talking about poem number 48, which is like the Peter Macmillan's professional translation of this poem is, blown by the fierce winds, I am the waves that crash upon your impervious rock. Though my heart shatters, my love rages yet. So Chihaya is like distraught because she's realizing that she has been this rock that Taichi's feelings have been crashing against all this time without really knowing it was the reason that he had become so distant and why he'd finally quit the club he loved. And like this realization that she's been making him feel this way unbeknownst to herself is like making her say like, I can't play anymore. Like I can't, like I'm afraid of Karata now. And the teacher tells her like just learn something to take your mind off of this. Like that's all you need to do, which is like maybe good advice, I guess. Like self-improvement when you have like romantic problems is always a good idea, I think. And so Taichi, meanwhile, is getting ready to take the science placement exam, and just when he's kind of relieved that like nobody at this exam place is like talking about school clubs or talking about Karata, he runs into Suo, who's like a teacher there, and he's like, are you in class A? And so yeah, meanwhile, Arata is focused on getting his Karata club off the ground. They need 5 new members, the oldest problem in the book. He has 2 brothers, Shun and Hiro Matsubayashi, who are class B. But Arata is starting to feel this sense of urgency because morale has reminded him, like, you don't have much longer as a student to just, like, fuck around and play Karata all the time. Like, you're going to have real responsibilities soon, so this is kind of your last chance. And so Arata goes around to every classroom, and he starts making a recruitment pitch to them. And he talks to his next-door neighbor, Yu, after that, who kind of scolds him for starting a club in his 3rd year. But when he thanks her for being part of his quote-unquote team when they took care of his grandfather when he was sick, she's like about ready to join the club herself. Because like this girl has like obviously kind of been in love with Arata forever. She's the girl next door, and they've been hinting at that for a long time. But as soon as she's about to say like she wants to join the club, like 3 other people show up, like 2 girls and a guy who are all kind of cute show up, and they're like, we know the 100 poems, we're gonna join, blah blah blah. So they all get to go to like a practice thing against Fujisaki, which like Chihaya and Taichi had in the past. And it's here that Arata learns the news that both Chihaya and Taichi have quit the club. And he has to like quickly refocus on his team's practice game, but like as he's playing, he's just trying to figure out like why the fuck did they quit? What the hell could have possibly happened? But it's interesting. Like he's also learning through these practice games that there's so many more things you have to do as a team. Like you have to have a vocal leader who directs everyone, and as Midorizawa, the Fujisaki like coach, says, like you also need to have like an egotistical leader, somebody who only cares about winning. And that's like what Taichi and Chihaya were, like the vocal leader and the egotistical one who only cares about getting better. And so there's like a nerdy moment where Haruto like fails at leading a cheer, and he's like, "Can we practice that again? We were totally off." And they're like, they do it again. It's so nerdy. But yeah, on the drive home, he's thinking about how impressive it is that Taichi and Chihaya managed to beat Fujisaki while just figuring out how to build their own team at the same time. And how he has so many things to learn. And he decides, like, I need to motivate them in the same way that they gave me motivation back when I was down in the dumps. So he remembers that text he got from Chihaya when she first put together the Karate team for Mizusawa. And so he sends her and Taichi a text with his new team saying, "I hope to see you at Omijingu." And Chihaya recalls what Taichi said when they saw that picture, that like, oh, if Aerith is coming back, we'll have to wait for him. And she thinks now, if Taichi is coming back, we have to wait for his return too. And so it just like comes full circle. It was nice how that came full circle. I think it was a good way to end off.
It made me wonder does that mean they're going to go back and rejoin the club now?
I think Chihaya, there's a very good chance. I don't know about Taichi. Taichi seems like he needs to figure something out for himself before he comes back, if he is going to come back. But I can definitely see Chihaya coming back for sure.
Can they still compete if they're not in the club?
He wouldn't be able to compete in team matches if he didn't come back, but still in individual matches, yeah, I think. Because you just kind of have to sign up and pay the entrance fee to perform in individual stuff. But for a team match, you need a registered team, I believe. Actually, I don't know. I guess you can kind of show up and register with a team. It wouldn't stop him from doing that, I guess. But I don't know. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how that drama plays out in an eventual season 4, if we ever get one. If we're going on the same time frame, it'll come out in 2026. Let's hope it's before that. That would be nice. So yeah. All right, you guys want to talk about Eizouken?
Yes, always.
Episode 12. Apparently there was a message that Midori missed from like 2 weeks ago that might have allowed them to avoid the situation they have now found themselves in with the music just being totally not working for the anime. But Tsubame is especially frustrated by this because she worked really hard on the animation and the timing to get it all right, and then the music's fucked up and doesn't match. So she's like flat out angry about it.
Well, it's just really frustrating when you put a lot of effort into something and then you find out like, oh, it was all for nothing.
Yeah, so apparently they have to get their file to the people who are going to do the DVDs for them in like an hour, but that's not going to work. So Sayaka calls them and she ends up like canceling their order while they're trying to figure out how to fix it.
I really liked how like business-like Sayaka was when she called too, because she's just very much like, yes, it's me. Where, like, she doesn't act like a teenager this is their first time, like, you know, doing something like this. She's very like, no, I'm a business person. Da 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 da.
And she doesn't burn bridges with them. She doesn't like beg them to change their mind or anything. She's just like, okay, I understand your decision. I hope to work with you again in the future. Like, that's it.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, she's very like no nonsense, but also polite. Like I was like, oh wow, how does she know to do that? Like she's 15, so
yeah, right. She's way ahead of her years.
This isn't the first time she's had to do this. She knows what she's doing. Yeah. Very her. So Midori finally decides that they will just recut the animation to fit the music, which is crazy. That's a lot of work.
That's all they're left with, though. You know.
Yeah. So the story in the anime that they're making so far is that two POWs from like each side find out they have a lot in common and that the war was just basically caused by a misunderstanding. And then they eventually are supposed to build a device that transmits a signal to everybody, and then everybody will instantly understand the war was caused by misunderstanding, and they all lay down their arms. But Midori is going to change it to that the signal doesn't work, and the two POWs continue to do what they think is right. And she also changes the finale to something we don't know just yet, which I'll get into when we get to the end.
Yeah.
So they end up pulling an all-nighter to get the changes made, and Sayaka literally fucking saws her way into the DVD people's place and like makes them agree to work on the DVDs in the morning, I guess. And I guess they also had to cut out the dance scene from the anime, and they decided to make this like a DVD bonus extra with the right music to it.
Yeah, that was smart. I thought that was kind of cool that that's how extra scenes sometimes get created, you know? Like, we made this, but it didn't work in the final product that we had due to certain limitations or whatever. And so it's now a DVD extra.
Yeah, so then they're at the event and they're selling their DVDs. And, like, at one point, Sayaka makes Tsubame hide her face because it will drum up interest. They're like, why is this famous person working on this? But then they're hiding their face, which it completely works. They sell out of all their DVDs. And then, like, there's, like, this kind of cool little scene of, like, all these people putting in the DVDs at once. And, like, then the anime that they made starts. Mm-hmm. And that's it's, like, not even, it's purely visual. So I think you should rather go watch it than me try to fucking describe this 10-minute anime that's in this anime.
It's also kind of hard to explain. And, like, I'm saying that when they've tried to explain the story of this over the past like 4 episodes, and still I was having trouble following what was actually like happening at certain parts of it.
So is there any certain scenes either of you want to like bring up? Really?
Well, I want to talk about the end, but I also, like, as a bigger thing, I just want to talk about, like, they held voice acting auditions for the public. Like, that was a big plot point. And then there was no voice acting in this short whatsoever. And so I was like, What happened there? Did they just forget that they did that? Like, what the fuck was that about? Like, I expected to see some goddamn voice acting, and I didn't get that. Now it's like, okay.
Yeah, no voice acting, just the music and all the animation. But the change to the ending was that basically both pilots just run out of fuel. Yeah. And then they crash, and then they get captured by the opposing armies.
Yeah, they like surrender to the other side.
How Midori wanted to end it.
It's interesting. Like, you could say that maybe when they surrender, they can explain to the other side like what the deal was. But like on the surface, it seems like a kind of dark ending. Like where it's just like, no, we tried our best to reach through with communication.
Well, when she was originally coming up with it, like there was like that crazy visual on the screen of like all this bad shit going on in the world as she was coming up with the idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, her like rowing the boat through that like black sea of like white text and stuff. Like that was really cool.
That was pretty cool. But the show goes out with a pretty cool scene of like all 3 of the girls in the club room, and like Midori's hopping around, waving her arms, coming up with ideas, and it looks like they're just working on their next project and you know what they're going to do next, and then that's just kind of where the show ends.
I like that Midori said like there's lots of room for improvement, because like at the end of the day, like I didn't love this short. Like I don't think it's like a perfect product. Like as an anime, I probably wouldn't watch it. So I like that she's like, no, we got to keep working.
Yeah, but as an anime made by a high school club, this is you have to give them props. That's not bad.
Yeah, it's true.
Pretty good.
One of the things I also really liked about it is like you could very clearly tell the parts that Tsubame animated and the parts that like Midori worked on, because like so those beautiful images of like fish swimming around, like obviously it's Tsubame who animated that. It looks so fluid and so good, and then like alien ships just like jutting around every which way, like okay, clearly Midori worked on this part. Like this is just more of like
they're banging into each other and just like huge like frame skips. Yeah
Absolutely. Yeah, so that I like that. Like you can see so much of themselves in the work that they create, which is still cool. I just like, I don't know, I wasn't very moved by the short in a way I kind of expected to be. But maybe that's just because they sort of went for a surprising and more realistic and down-to-earth ending, though.
I do like the realistic part of it, but yeah, it wasn't as like fun. I wasn't as thrilled with it. But I think that's supposed to be part of it, is like, this is what actually happens in real life. Like,
yeah,
they have this grand idea, things happen, they, alter course so that they can get it done as needs be. This is the end result,
Yeah, I liked that too. Yeah, for sure.
And I like the idea is, I guess, that all anime are kind of like that. Like, they had an idea. What we actually ended up watching was not necessarily their like first idea. That's not what they probably meant, but like that's what it ended up being. And like this is sort of supposed to be a representation of that happening, which makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The best approximation of what they could set out to do. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
I liked just the overall like business staying relevant until the end. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a real ending. But then again, I always knew that this kind of anime was never going to have that. So I'm not shocked or anything,
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. It wasn't ever about like the full narrative of the characters. It was sort of just about it was more an anime about like expressing like from the creative side of the anime industry like what goes into making anime. Then like our journey continues kind of ending at the end of that. And that makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the ending fit it. Yeah.
Yeah, and in some ways I think this is done better than the other anime about making anime that exists. I can't remember the name of it, but I've watched it.
Shirobako?
The one with all the girls.
Yeah, Shirobako.
Yes, Shirobako.
I rewatched that recently as well. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, in some ways it's more businessy and like honest, because Shirobako ignores a lot of business aspects of anime. Not all of them, but some of the like money stuff it kind of ignores. Whereas this is more like, no, this is the way it works, and like people need to make money, and there's not enough money for this, and like you have to be profitable. I like that part of it. I think Shirobako goes more in detail with some aspects though than this anime does. And that's
some
almost
aspects
like
with the production and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and it's almost like because it is a more childish view of it in some ways. But overall, it's still good. It's been a long time since we saw anything like this, and it's almost unique, and I liked it.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. We've got 2 episodes to finish off with It Invaded, so we should jump into those.
Yeah, this was a long ending.
Oh, yeah.
I was kind of like, why, though? Like, I don't know. But start out with episode 12. So Kiki wakes up and starts just, like, melting reality, and people pass out and shit. And it's like the entire building is just done. So everyone's passed out. And that's a lot of people. I don't know the exact number, but it's probably at least several hundred, right?
In that building,
it's an office building. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all kind of hostages now to Kiki.
In a way, yeah.
The chief comes in and shoots himself, and he basically admits, like, I never killed anyone, so in order to go to the Idwell, I gotta kill someone, so I'm gonna kill myself. And he basically confesses to everything, and it's sort of like, I created the Mizuhaname. The Mizuhaname will solve crime forever, so it's worth all of the people that I killed and all the serial killers I created. Well, the people I killed by proxy. And are the serial killers I created making it because it's the end of crime. I don't care. And then he like passes out in the Idwell and dies. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because we've gone this whole season and everything's been very secretive. And then it's like, oh, well, now we know. Well, now he's just going to confess to everything. So it's kind of anticlimactic in a way. But, everyone goes after him because they're like, well, no, that's not cool. So Inami goes after him, and Sakaido goes after him, and Anaido even. So that's interesting. And as soon as the chief gets into the Idwell, he has no memory. But I guess Kiki allows him to uncover the secret of the world immediately because she wants him to start an id storm. However, he's dead, so I guess this is where it got very complicated.
Oh, yeah.
So I watched this like 4 times to try and explain it. So because he's dead, he is no longer affected by the id storm because his id well won't update. So he doesn't. Yeah. So his existence doesn't acknowledge that he is in his own id well, but like he consciously knows, but his subconscious does not know, so he does not start an id storm.
Sure.
Is that good?
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes about as much sense as it can.
Yeah. So everyone is in the id storm, and he's like, haha, I beat you all, blah blah blah, and like saying villainy things, as all villains do. And everyone else puts together that Kiki is actually the Idwell. They have like this whole Purple Sky song that they play, and everyone's doing very dramatic things. Did you like that at all? Everyone's
I kind of liked that song. I thought it was all right. Yeah.
It felt very like, oh shit, things are gonna go down, like da na na na, kind of a My Hero Academia moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, Inami basically ends up sacrificing himself Naido ends up sacrificing himself for Inami, and you kind of figure out that, he loved her all along, which was interesting.
Oh, you're talking about Hondo Machi, because like Inami is the one who shoots, right? Like who's trying to shoot Hondo Machi for killing her lover, I guess, or like arresting her lover. I think it's like Fukuda. Yeah, like the cute girl with the backpack is the one Fukuda jumps in front of.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Hondo Machi.
I got it mixed up there.
A lot of fucking names flying around. Like I think he protects her because like they're hole buddies. They got holes in their heads.
They're hole buddies.
Hole buddies.
Well, I will say a weakness of the show is that all of the names are very Japanese, and although that's true of a lot of anime, this is like even more so than normal. Like they're very complicated Japanese names, and so it can be difficult.
You need the four kids dub of this show where Fukuda is just called like Frank, and Hondo Machi is named Frank. Like Helen.
Frank. Yes.
And Nami's named like Iris or something. I don't know.
Iris. Yes. We should do that. Could you imagine if we just did all the dub parts? We're just like,
that'd be pretty fun, actually.
That would be fun. But yeah, so Inami, basically, Hondo Machi killed her boyfriend, so she's like, well, I killed your, like, maybe love interest, Anaido. But, like, yeah. I don't feel like, well, okay, I guess the relationship that Inami was in was kind of like that in that it would never be a thing, but they would always have feel. So it makes sense. Like, Hondo Machi and Anaido were never going to be a thing, but there was something there.
There's like a bond between them, like something they shared at least. Yeah,
whole buddies. You already said it.
They're whole buddies. That just sounds like they fucked the same girl or something.
Oh god.
Maybe at the same time. That is actually a term, and whole buddies is like two guy friends who have fucked the same.
Isn't
girl.
it called a spit roast?
No, that's if they fuck them at the same time, Leo. I think you're misunderstanding.
Okay.
Like a spit roast is when you stick your dick in a girl's mouth.
I know what this
while she gets fucked.
Oh,
I just thought you needed an education. I don't know. You seemed ignorant about it. All right. So she goes
I can hear Bcom wondering if he's like, do I need to edit this out or not?
No, I'm good.
Bcom's like, maybe I shouldn't let it be that lewd. And Leo's like,
anymore.
but I like it. Oh. You heard it here, guys. Bcom doesn't care anymore. I can
Absolutely
be off the rocker.
We've
I'm
broken him.
unsupervised. I don't know. She goes to Kazuta's Idwell so she can see him one more time, and Nambi does, before she gets killed by the chief. So that's basically suicide, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So I don't know. Everyone basically now has to go and see if they can save everyone in the office tower and, save them all. And they basically decide that even if Momoki has to go back into the Mizuharame and be imprisoned and all that, like, well, that's just too bad because there's too many people who die otherwise. So it's just got to be the way it is. So.
Woo!
Oh yeah, there was like a couple things. So I think we called like maybe as early as like episode 3 or something that like the Idwell could potentially make you immortal, and so like the chief seems to be taking advantage of that. Like he shoots Sakaido and he shoots himself, and he goes into the Idwell and he's like, I'm just gonna live there forever, basically. And so that's kind of
I guess like it's a version of living. It's not quite life, but it's not death. So.
Yeah, you're like some weird spirit of other people's dreams kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, you're still conscious, I guess.
And there was another thing, like, I think it was last episode where we were a little bit confused about how Honda Machi, like, got the hole back in her head when she came back from the well inside a well, and then Fukuda, like, poked her in the head. But then we see her get her hole back again this episode, specifically when John Walker tells her her true identity. And it just, like, reforms. So I think it's, like, a residual self-image thing. Like, when she was in the Idwell within an Idwell, like, she thought of herself as, like, a weird, idealistic version of herself who didn't have the hole. But, like, once she gets, like, the reality brought back to her of her real situation, the whole, like, reforms to explain that, like, I am this person. Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered, because I was like, well, obviously there's something with this. Sometimes she has it, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But
so that's interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so final episode 13, Channeled Part 2.
Oh, boy.
So Nari Hisago confronts John Walker, who is in a very weird Idwell. He's standing on top of a baby's head in, I guess, a mother's womb. It's a giant baby. And he basically says this Idwell must have belonged to someone whose first memory was something terrible. Because they're just jumping around Idwell, so I guess this like baby had a terrible first memory, and that's its Idwell. Like, fucking weird.
Isn't everyone's Idwell like in there going to eventually be a serial killer? So it's the idea that like some child somewhere is like destined to be a serial killer, and they're just fucked.
I guess so. Yeah. They're like okay, and they're like yapping. Oh wait, so John Walker starts trying to make an argument that he's the same as Nari Hisago. Like they're both serial killers. They're both brilliant detectives inquiring about justice. And it's just that Nari Hisago doesn't understand the way John Walker is trying to be just, so he's angry at him when he shouldn't be. But yeah, they're standing around in this womb's like red amniotic fluid, I assume. And Hondo Machi starts riding a shark around in like this fluid and makes it jump up and swallow John Walker. But then he like emerges from the water like a few seconds later with a few chunks taken out of his head and his arm. And the Mizuhaname system also just like repairs his body. He explains that's because like he cannot leave this world, so it like automatically fixes him basically because he's meant to be there. I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah.
Annoyed, Hanamachi and Nari Hisago like run off with John Walker's hat, which she's like, oh, this is very important to a gentleman or like a brilliant detective. And so they run off with his hat, which is weird. And while all this is going on, Momoki is breaking into the Kura building. He's got this full fucking armor on. But Kiki Asakai has also gotten stronger, and the suit isn't entirely protecting him from the influence that she's got. So he needs to hurry. And the other members of Kura who are trapped in it Idwell are being chased by like Indiana Jones boulders down a hill. But they realize that them making noise is what attracts these boulders to them, so they just hide and are quiet, and then are fine. The brilliant detectives like are on a hide and seek chase through different Idwells. They end up in Fukuda's Idwell, where Nari Hisago woke up at the beginning of the show, where all like the houses and everything are disjointed and his arm is disjointed. They all sit down for a little chat, and Nari Hisago and Handomachi seem to have the top hand. And Handomachi asks the chief, who calls himself Uraido as the brilliant detective, about the number 7, because like Handomachi's had this theory. And he's like, oh, it's a divine number. And then she's like, oh, so you must have a god complex. But then he also admits he created an 8th serial killer by accident. And he calls Nari Hisago, the 8th serial killer, the cornerer, because he like corners people and like makes them commit suicide
into killing themselves. Yeah, like almost makes it so they have to.
I love the way Hanamachi defends him, saying, like, he's not a serial killer. He's a serial suicide inciter who kills serial killers. And so she argues to the chief, or that the chief, like, unconsciously created the cornerer so that he himself would be cornered in the end, which fits with her whole number 7 theory, I guess. So,
God, I'm so glad you guys had these 2 episodes.
Yeah, this fucking episode is nuts. It's I kind of like it, but it's very in depth.
It's almost too much. It's almost too much, and you're like, stop.
So Narisago, like, because he's in this Fukuda Idwell, is able to detach his hand like he did back in the first episode, and he uses it to like force Hayasera into this chair that he's in, and then it's revealed that the chair is a Mizuhaname cockpit that was brought into this Idwell by Fukuda or Onaido at some point. In the Idwell within an Idwell, Hayasera emerges just before his first kill, which is like when he was going to shoot Narihisago and then himself before going into the thing. And Narihisago there tackles him before he has a chance to shoot the gun in the Kura building. Okay, so now Hanamachi and Narihisago have handled that. Hanamachi like stomps on like the tablet that's used to control this fucking cockpit, so like he's just trapped in there. But now they need to escape Fukuda's Idwell, and they feel like they'll need some help from the outside. Speaking of which, Momoki is not doing well. He's lost like 70% of his brain function, and he like vomits and falls, and he's entering cardiac arrest.
His suit is really interesting because it has like adrenaline injectors in it. It's got a defibrillator in it. Its own compression for it. It's weird. This is the weirdest suit I've never heard of.
Very high tech.
Like
suit.
It's doing the chest compressions also. So like that's a whole huge device in and of itself. So
yeah, I assume something like that exists in real life. Like, I mean, you could, I don't know, like in the James Bond movie Casino Royale, he attaches like a defibrillator to himself and defibrillates himself, and I assume you could do that remotely too. With like a radio signal or something. I don't know, Bluetooth.
I wasn't impressed with the accuracy when they had to do the chest impressions on them, because they're like, we've cracked so and so ribs. Because when you go and you have training for that, they tell you to expect to break people's ribs.
Oh yeah, for
when
sure.
You do, yeah. I was just like, that's cool.
Like sometimes they say like if you're not doing that, like it's not, it may not even be like helping them at all. Because you really need to start their heart. So yeah, they get his heart pumping again. He starts moving. He finds Kiki Asakai, and she thinks he's come to save her, like he did when he first found her, like in the arena of like the Challenger, I guess, or whatever. And he points his gun at her, and she realizes that she's broken and can't remain in this world. But then Momoki throws his gun away and says, why don't we just run away, like somewhere where you can live far apart from people and like you wouldn't be able to like hurt them. And she says she likes that idea, but it's too idealistic because she started seeing nightmares from people in far off countries. So it's getting like completely out of hand now. Like, so yeah, she picks up a gun. She's just going to
keep growing. Like her mind will
it's just going to get worse. Yeah. So she picks up his gun and she puts it up to her head and pulls the trigger to like make it so like he doesn't have to do it, because he can't kill her. He says like the same thing, like, I'm a police officer, I can't do this. Like that Narihisago had said. And so she pulls the trigger, but there's no bullets in the gun. And she's like, I can't believe like I just want to die. And so, but then she decides, okay, all right, if nobody can kill me, the only thing I have left to do is go back into the Mizuhaname. That's the only place I still have any value and can help people. And so they walk back to like the fucking chamber where she like suspends herself or whatever. And Momoki promises like, someday we will find a way to free you from this suffering without just killing you. Like, we'll find a way. And I like there was like a cool moment here where she's like re-entering the machine and Sakaido is in there and he talks to her and says, "Hi Kairu, I found you alive for the first time." And I liked that like kind of closure with that arc as well. And Kiki's like, I choose to believe in Momoki that he'll get me out of here someday. So the Kura workers like reemerge from the well and they're able to extract Hondomachi and Narihisago. Fukuda is unfortunately dead. Poor guy. One too many holes in him. In the end, the chief's death was made out to be a suicide due to mental breakdown because they still don't want to reveal the truth of the system.
Well, of course they don't. They don't want to be like, hey, by the way, the person who used to run this, like, created a bunch of serial killers, but also created this awesome thing. We don't know what to say about that, but this is the truth. Like, of course they're not going to do that. What are you talking about?
It would be a massive deal if this system suddenly became known.
Of course they're going to like seal it in secrecy. What do you mean, Bcom?
Well, it's just funny because like in that sense, like the chief's legacy kind of lives on. It's like his whole we're gonna solve crimes and like kill serial killers using this device, like just like I intended, is gonna go on.
Yeah, but his legacy went farther than that because he wanted to make the system even better.
Yeah, that's true.
With him in it, so.
It's funny to me that like the guy who became the active chief at the end was like that guy Kofuku instead of like the redheaded girl Togo, who I thought would become the chief. She just seemed to run everything most of the time, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But
yeah, Serena was a hottie for sure.
So the only thing I have to say is that like I think we called a lot of this like a few episodes back. But I still was kind of satisfied with the way it all played out because it was smart. It was just, it's better than like some completely unexpected bullshit ending. At least, you know, like I was happy with this.
That's why I liked the show in the end because it managed to hold itself together. Where shows like this, like you said, can just have this bullshit ending out of nowhere, and you're like, you sit there and you're like, I'm supposed to fucking believe this?
Yeah, right.
A lot of shows can like are very good at making it seem like there's some intellectual point that they're trying to make, but they never make it ever because they're not smart enough to do it. This show actually does have the smarts that it pretended to have. Because I was half expecting like, oh no, this will end terribly and I'll be very angry. But I wasn't at all. I just don't think it was as clear as it could have been. I felt like a lot of things were convoluted, but it was more because there were too many strings that they were trying to explain too quickly than it was that they didn't know what they were talking about. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Okay.
I don't know. Is that how you guys felt about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely convoluted and it takes a while to put together. At the end of the day, I think most of the stuff fits together at the end, though, so I'm okay with it. I don't know.
Like most of the threads that they put in, they did try to have come together at the end. It's just there were so many.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot.
But that's not a bad thing. They at least did it. It's better than the bullshit endings most of them get. So
yeah, like I said, shows like this sometimes tend to just unravel badly towards the end or like midway through, and I'm just glad that this one held itself together.
Yes.
I think they could have built up Momoki's character a little bit more if he was going to be sort of this big hero at the end of the show, like by getting to Kiki Izakai and having this huge moment with her. Because like I always, for most of the show, I thought Matsuoka would be this big hero, but he's just like he's more of a mentor to Hondo Machi, but like not too much, like just a little bit. Like I don't know. Yeah, it's so. Those two I felt needed more fleshing out if this was going to be like a really great show. As it is, it's just like pretty good, I think. Like it was enjoyable to watch and I liked seeing it play out. I thought it was like pretty smartly written, like mystery thriller show. So yeah. Anywho.
Cool. We can move on to the last episode of Dorohedoro.
Yay!
Yay! Episode 12. Before we started recording, I told Bcom, I was like, there are some really important characters that get introduced in this final episode.
Yeah.
But you have no idea they're important unless you do some research. So, like, the first one is this guy named Eikaiwa, and I won't say why he's important. You can just
theorize.
Just wait or go read the manga or something. So he doesn't seem important yet in the anime because they're apparently need to go a little ways more into like the manga, the source material. You do find out he was friends with Risu and even defends him from like some of the cross eyes just because he doesn't like Risu working with him. This is important only because I know he also gets headaches sometimes and will suddenly disappear. but that is not important for right now. Back to the present, and Risu goes to like a town called Aerith, where supposedly the boss of the Cross Eyes is living, and there's also supposedly a research facility there where like he's supposed to be like, researching how to, give the people in the Cross Eyes like better magic. But you know what? The doctors already know how to do that because they did it for Shin.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that technology and knowledge is already done. So Nikaido tells Kaiman that an enemy of In's is also her enemy, so they start fighting, and Kaiman eventually gets like knocked into a temple where like Birdhead is praying to the devils for Nikaido to be killed because he just wants to end to himself. And like Kaiman hits a statue and the head falls off and it's like pinning his legs to the ground. And then like Nikaido just fucking savagely knees Kaiman so hard that he breaks through the floor and he blacks out for a moment. As he's blacked out, he briefly has a dream of a chip being pulled out of a brain and then a phone ringing, which I think this is the second time we've seen a phone ringing in like one of his dreams or something. This whole dream sequence, it doesn't come up in the rest of the episode. Kaiman quickly awakens and he manages like to crawl to safety, and then he finds himself next to a mirror and hears Nikaido drop down, and he like reflexively goes for his knife, but he doesn't really want to hurt her. And then like out of nowhere, suddenly it's Risu in the mirror saying, "Are you going to kill a friend again?" So like, has he killed another friend before? Did Risu kill a friend? Who killed who? Then like,
yeah.
And then suddenly out of nowhere, Nikaido gets stabbed in the back. Like, it's gruesome. Like,
now I assume like the guy inside of Kaiman's mouth like climbed out of him and did this. That's my assumption. Anyway,
I'm kind of assuming that too. But later on, she's like, it wasn't Kaiman who stabbed me. She's like, I don't know who it was. It was still a little dark, but it definitely wasn't Kaiman. It was just somebody else. Somebody else is definitely down here with us. But then that's when Asu the devil shows up and he heals Nikaido's wound. But while doing so, he ends up pulling out that contract that she has with In.
Luckily.
Yeah. Well, he's like, that's odd. It's almost, I get the feeling that he's like, it's almost like this person stabbed her in a very specific way
to get the contract out.
But
so also, that doesn't end the contract. That was the interesting thing.
Yeah. It does not end the contract. Yeah. All this does is allow Nikaido to regain control of herself, and it also affects In as he like passes out. But he's none the wiser of what's happened. So basically, as Asu explains, he's like, the contract is already a part of you, and it's just going to take time for it to basically regrow, and then you'll be completely under his spell again. How it works.
Like, doesn't they say specifically if N sees you and like meets you?
Yes,
the contract will regrow. Yeah,
she needs to stay away from him, and then she won't go back under his control. But then like Kaiman is blacked out again and dreams about being operated on, and somebody telling him he must never come to their house because that is there. He also remembers when he first came to, and the doctor was taking care of him. This is also when he first met Nikaido, who took him to the doctor. And yeah, these flashbacks, they mean nothing to us right now.
Yeah.
Nikaido finds Kaiman and shakes him awake, and then he's like, "You're a sorcerer." So he bites her head, and when she comes back out, she's like, "He said I wasn't the one." He's like, "I don't know if I believe you." She's like, "You have to." And then En shows up looking for Nikaido, and Asu makes a door for the two of them to escape.
Oh, also, like, she tells him definitively the guy inside your mouth was Risu.
Yeah, yes. That's a big thing. She's like, that's Risu. He's like, what the fuck? Asu then turns Birdhead into a lookalike of Nikaido to fool End. Birdhead is appalled at first until he realizes he can make En hate Nikaido if he acts out. Then Asu's like, I know what you're thinking. Don't fucking do that. Asu, for some reason, also has to go see Chihayafuru because he's calling for him.
Yeah.
And we don't know what that was about or anything either. There's a lot of like questions that just the show doesn't end. Asu briefly wonders where the man went that stabbed Nikaido, and he wonders if there was a man at all. He also wonders if maybe it wasn't a good idea to send Kaiman away with Nikaido. So he's even questioning himself. Nikaido and Kaiman find themselves in like an abandoned town, and they hide underground from the devils. Nikaido tells Kaiman that her magic isn't that powerful, it's just rather unique, and people like En want to use her. Basically, her whole big story of why she escaped to the hole was because her magic killed a friend of hers, and she just wanted to escape it.
Yeah.
Long story short, the two make up and become friends with a pinky promise. And there's also like 5 new characters just suddenly show up in the ED.
Oh, yeah.
What the fuck?
So I get the feeling that they're very confident about a season 2. Because
it feels like it.
The way this ended, it's like, all right, we're obviously continuing this. Like, we're not even going to pretend that we're going to try to wrap up anything here, because obviously this is going to continue.
Yeah, and with a name like Netflix behind it, that's very possible.
Yeah, and it hasn't obviously released outside of Japan on Netflix, but I've heard that it's done well on Netflix inside Japan. So,
oh, nice.
And
nice.
I also can't see this like not doing well in the US when it comes out. Like, it's such a weird show, and it's so aesthetically cool that like I think a lot of people are going to like it when it comes out here. But
I think it has its own charm, and I think American people will like it. You're right.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very unique. It doesn't. I can't really compare it to anything else.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's so out there. Yeah,
it's such its own thing. So yeah.
So I'm glad that like Mikaido and Kaiman are teamed up again. They made so many, like, what was like the promise they made, like
to be friends forever.
Yeah, it was like friends, like, as long as you don't use your magic, I'll be your friend.
Yeah, that's what Kaiman says.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so she's obviously going to use her magic. So what's going to happen then?
Yeah, but then it's just going to... Then it makes you wonder what the situation is where she has to use her magic and whether Kaiman acts on the promise they made.
Exactly, yeah. And like he's the most mysterious one of all, because like there's so much stuff hinted at with like the flashes of this episode of him and like Risu and their past. Yeah. So yeah, I'm so curious about all that. Like it built my curiosity up over the entire series, and now I definitely just need to see how it ends. But.
And at the beginning, you kind of think, okay, so he's Risu, but now I'm at the point I'm like, I don't think he's Risu. I think he's somebody else. Yeah. Who are you?
Who are you? Yeah.
I think that's part of the fun, is that we get to continuing finding out. I agree with Leo that in Bcom that I think you'll see season 2 in like a year.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, you guys going like for a while. Let's take a break.
Take a break.
Be right back.
All right.
Hi, I'm JD, your host of the Red Leaf Retrocast, your best location to learn, remember, and relive the past to the present. Our podcast has 4 shows for you to listen to between retro gaming, modern gaming, anime, and even wrestling. The Retro Gaming Cast covers discussion topics, and each episode we discuss retro games picked based on a decided theme for that episode, ranging from space all the way to console specials like the old handheld Game Boy. Our Modern Gaming Cast is monthly and covers video game titles that were released in that previous month. Each Anime Cast, we focus to review a retro anime each and every episode, like the original Mobile Suit Gundam to the racing hit Initial D. But that's not all. We also keep up with the seasonal shows, by occasionally doing impressions and reviews as well. Finally, our last show is about wrestling, where we keep the rising indie scene up to date, while also covering shows from the bigger promotions like Ring of Honor, New Japan, and WWE, so we cover it all. We also cover a retired wrestler every episode in what we call the Wrestler Spotlight, and are currently on a quest covering old WCW Thunder episodes from the late 90s, every cast. So if any one of those casts sound like something you'd like to check out, that's the Red Leaf Retrocast, Gaming, Anime, and Wrestling, found at iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, and all your favorite podcasting sites. Also, you can learn, remember, and relive the past to the present. We can't wait to see you soon.
Hey. Do you like wrestling?
Whether it be in a bar, an arena, some weird place in Asia, or in a stadium?
Or the occasional penis plex?
Well, if any of these things might tickle your fancy, anywhere in between from penises to wrestling, you can come and check out our podcast.
Our podcast name is Smack It Down. We talk all things WWE, New Japan, anything else in between.
I'm Jay Silver.
I'm Corey Gold.
And we look forward to you joining us.
Happy Rusev Day.
Happy Rusev Day indeed.
And we are back, and we made Kat watch Travis Scott astronomical concert in Fortnite.
They did make me watch it.
And
It was weird
cool.
as fuck, and it was like an acid trip that had been orchestrated by a video game. That's what I'll call it. So,
But yeah, and I went to one of those. I was there moving my character myself for one of the 6 shows he had. So like that's the cool part. And there's no more. So that was like the only time you could ever experience that. Yeah.
interesting.
Before Leo talks about Seton Academy, I just want to say, to preface this episode, I think the best way for dumb shows to end is to have the dumbest episode imaginable.
So dumb shows should end dumbly. Is that that's your
They should
official
just
stance? You're like,
take
listen,
the dumb to
if the
like
show is
300%.
stupid, it should end fucking stupidly.
Oh yeah, and I think they managed that very well.
They did. They did manage that, to be fair.
Oh
man.
boy. Okay, Seton Academy, episode 12. The mammoth. God, this mammoth. The mammoth finally reveals itself, and she's just this like tiny chibi mammoth thing.
Were you really surprised? Because you know that this show loves like hot animal girls. So like, did you really think they were gonna like lose their last chance to introduce one last hot anime girl?
I mean, it was still surprising. Just like you expect this giant woolly mammoth, and it's like, "Hi, hello." It's just, but it's perfect because like she is the perfect enemy for Ronka because like they're both the same size.
This
yeah,
tiny little thing. Yeah. But then Jen shows up with some of the others, and he like finally realizes Anne is a Neanderthal. Like something we predicted like the second she first showed up on screen.
yeah, pretty much. So that's good. It's nice to have confirmation that we're smart.
But this little mammoth is called Korimoto. I think I got that right. I don't know.
Something
Korimoto.
like that.
Yeah. She gets angry when they call her tiny, and she's like, all right, I'm going to handle things from here. But then like King like puts his hand on her head, and he's like, hey, you're really tiny. You're just going to get hurt. So you probably don't want to do this. But she like easily just picks him up off the ground. And then like Yena goes to attack too. And she just catches her fist and she like throws them both. So she's like super tiny and chibi, but she's like crazy strong.
Yeah.
So then Korimoto goes after Jin next, and Ronka steps in to stop her. And Jin's like, oh, Ronka's going to get the fucking shit beat out of her if I don't do something. So he like proposes that they have a boxing match to determine the winner. But they also have to give Hitomi back if they win. Of course, Korimoto's like, why would I agree with this? But then we finally find out what the fucking blue things were. They were just marbles the entire time.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed in that. Cause
So
it's like, what the hell are these?
So Jin like throws the marbles on the ground, and he's like, yeah, elephants hate injuring their feet, so she won't even step on them. And it's kind of funny because then you see her and Anne like trying to like corral
Collect
up all
them,
the marbles.
So dumb.
There's so many dumb things in this fucking final episode. But then like Anne like tells her to finally agree to the boxing thing. And then I just loved how they made the zebra Crowy the referee, because you know she's stripes. Referee, black and white stripes. Yeah, just like goddamn. There is a short backstory on like how Anne and Korimoto got together. Nothing important happens in it. But Jin also tells Ronka that he picked boxing because he thought the mini mammoth seemed slow and didn't have much stamina, so to say. But then in the first round, Ronka quickly gets cornered and like takes a big punch, and then like she bounces off the ropes and then gets like headbutted. But she gets saved by the bell in the first round. And then for round 2, all the girls get put into sexy outfits so they can hold up cards for the second round, you know, like they do in boxing.
Apparently for that, we have to give thanks to the kangaroos who like they run the boxing ring, and they were like, all right, the only way we're going to let you use this ring is if you dress up like this.
Yep, that was their part of their deal. We'll only let you use it as long as you get in these sexy outfits. And like Hitomi's outfit is just like, it's barely there.
And fucking An has like a fucking leash on her neck at the same time. Yep. Oh my god.
Kat, do you have an outfit like that?
No, I do not. Well, look, I could probably put something together But
Yeah, I mean, your dog has a leash. No, but like, fucking, it's so ridiculous though. Like, oh man. I like. Look, the one thing I'm happy about. It seems like my An and Hitomi ship is going places.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So we also can tell that Korimoto is tiring very quickly because she lacks the stamina. And then Anne finds out that Hitomi knew she was basically a Neanderthal like way earlier on, and she's like just stunned that she still wanted to be friends with her even though they're of different species. Then in round 2, Ranka gets baited by Korimoto because she says she doesn't have the strength to be a boss. And then Ranka basically just gets another punch to the face.
She's getting the shit beaten out of her in this episode. Like, she's got bruises all over the place.
And they keep it up because like every scene you see her face is just fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
They just stick with it and it's almost funny. But then Ranka for the third round gets super powered up because Jin like finally pats her head and praises her and she's like, yeah. And then round 3, Korimoto pretends that she's really tired and Ranka falls for it because she's really not, and she takes like a punch to the gut and then like an uppercut that throws her literally out of the ring.
I literally thought that punch to the gut like broke her spine because like the hand like goes through her stomach like, and you could see it coming out of her back almost. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, but then she's like out of the ring and they're counting down, but then everybody starts cheering for her, and she finally gets back up. But then it's not even her that takes Korimoto down. It's Anne when Anne tells her, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And she's like, and then like, Ranka's like, you fail as a boss if you can't trust your friends. And yeah, Korimoto can't handle it. She falls to the ground. Countdown goes to 10. Yeah, Jin's team wins. And then like Korimoto even finally loses her hatred for humans when like Hitomi puts a band-aid on her and realizes how like nice and shining some humans can be, leave it to Hitomi.
Nice and shining.
And then Ranka like kicks Anne out of her pack for betraying her, and then she ends up just rejoining Korimoto's and they're friends again, so yay for them. Then the show ends with like the Extinct Club and the Cooking Club cooking together, and then like Hitomi might actually be into girls instead of guys.
Yeah.
There's a
they
little
get interrupted by Yena, but like it seemed like things were going down there for a second.
Yeah, that was
I want to be friends,
something.
But yeah.
And
Jin
then,
did not get an ending with Hitomi. That I'm happy about. Like, he basically just like thanks Ranka for showing him something great, which was all the girls in fucking bikinis, basically. But
yep. And then like finally it ends with King. He's got his ass kicked by him by a new threat, and it's from the Fabre Academy. And all you see is their shadows, and they're just a bunch of insects. And that made me realize what we were missing from the show: insect girls. Damn, I can't wait for season 2. Insect girls, everybody. Woo!
Oh, that would be so ridiculous. I feel like they're never making that season 2, but that is like a funny cliffhanger to end off on.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
This show is so ridiculous. I don't know. Like I had so much fun watching this last episode. Like, yeah, just like I said, like when you have a crazy premise, like you have to go even crazier at the end to end it. So it was really fun.
They went there.
It was just as mindless and brainless as the rest of the show, so I won't fault it too much.
Exactly.
Put it that way.
Hitomi's outfit, though, oh my god.
Speaking of mindless and brainless things, BOFURI.
Okay. All right, yeah, we can go to BOFURI.
So I find that these shows, after watching the endings, are very similar. They're both pretty mindless and brainless. One is just about a different thing than the other one. So,
yeah, but BOFURI does a really good job of kind of setting itself apart from other video game anime.
In what way?
Just the things that they did in the gaming world, specifically like the tournaments they focused on. You think like a Sword Art, they barely do anything that's focused on the game. There's just some bad guy, and there's not a bad guy in BOFURI.
Yeah,
I guess true.
That's actually something that I am looking forward to in season 2, because I was thinking about how they could make a season 2 better, and what they really need is like a really strong villain to counter Maple and the rest of her team. But yeah,
I don't know. I just found I found the show kind of like lacking in depth, but entertaining on the whole. So,
Okay.
I found them similar in that way. This episode, Maple gets brought down to health by Pain, who does that sneak attack in the last episode. Ends up getting down to like minimum health. So they're all like, well, fuck, it ends now.
Yeah.
There's like this huge fight where Maple just sort of like brings all of her tricks out. She's like, what about this? Oh, you can withstand this? What about this? Like, would you account that as accurate in terms of the fight? Like, oh,
Yeah,
let me
pretty
try
much.
this.
Yeah.
Let me try this.
Yeah, nothing's
thing.
working. Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, she's like, well, I've tried everything else. I'm going to try the atrocity thing. That's like her ace card. She tries it. She does end up able to beat him finally, and he's like, oh my God, I never knew you had this ability.
Yeah, she pretty much just goes One Punch Man the rest of this
Kind
episode.
of. I did like also she didn't.
Them.
Yeah, she didn't like change back because she's like, well, if I did it, I might as well make the most of it. And so then they go around and eliminate the other guilds, which was smart
like-
in a way.
Yeah, no, I thought it was funny, but then I also liked how like she was somehow drinking out of a giant tea mug that they somehow
yeah.
had for her.
Yeah, it's like, but where did that come from?
It's like, why do you have this?
I like to imagine that they were all sitting around and she's like, hungry. And they're like, fuck. They made it on the spot for her somehow. They're like, please don't eat us. I did think it was kind of short-sighted to go around to all the guilds and eliminate them with the atrocity because now they all know about it. And I think,
Yeah.
I mean, if they had just kept it like to the one guild that they fought, I don't know if they would have gone around being like, she has this atrocity ability and like let everyone know. And now like it's not a surprise at all. Everyone knows about it. So it's not as much of a trump card, you know?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, like, I guess Sally's plan was to just take all of the guilds that they can out of the running, except for the top guilds who they know are going to be in there anyway. So they are, like, guaranteed to, you know, sort of at least make it into a higher place. I
Yeah,
don't know.
and they all get the same prize anyways, so they don't really care.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the event comes to an end and Maple Puri is in third place when it's ending. And the admins decide to let Maple do her own thing still because she's like attracting a lot of players and there's a lot of interest in her and maybe they can sort of be like, well, but she is breaking the game, but she's also making people interested in the game, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
And then Maple invites both the Holy Sword and the Flame Emperors over to like eat with them and have fun, which I also thought was dumb. Like they thought it was dumb, and I was like, "What are you doing, Maple? You're an idiot." They would have never done this for you. So it's cute and it makes sense, but it's not realistic. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, there was a few cute things at the end of the episode, like when they combined like the shadow clone jutsu stuff with like Maple's atrocity to make like 7 of them. They're just like wrecking shit.
Going on a fucking
yeah.
rampage. Yeah,
They did do that.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, so you're telling me she's literally unstoppable in this game when she's in that fucking form? Okay.
Yeah.
It was very entertaining, I thought, at least.
I also just liked the cute moment when like the devs look in like, what do you think Maple's doing right now? And she's in like her sheep wool ball form, and May and Yui are just like playing with her like a beach volleyball. I was like, okay,
is really cute.
that's exactly what they would be doing. It was good times. Yeah, this I agree with you, Leo, that this was just such like a feel good show. I think I'll talk about it more in the wrap up, but like I think it went beyond like Sword Art Online, Gun Gale Online, and like it feels like a real game, but then they're just really focusing on the fun parts of that game.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that Gun Gale Online was better than this. Not because I like Sword Art
Yeah.
Online. I think the like seasons since the first 2 have been shit. So I don't really like Sword Art Online that much. It's not coming from a fan place. I think that the seriousness that is in Gun Gale, while still it being like a fun anime, makes it better. Just period. I think that the fact that BOFURI is just like, oh, the fun parts, woohoo,
Yeah.
it makes it less of an anime.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, fun. It's the equivalent of a sandbox game of
Yeah.
an anime. So You either really like that or you think it makes it a little bit less. I don't know. It depends on who you are as a person.
Yeah, it's like when I say that I want them to have like a big villain in season 2, I don't want them to go too far with that and just have that bog down the whole show and make it not fun anymore. But like, yeah, I don't think they can keep doing exactly what they're doing either, because we've already seen that. It's been fun. We need like obstacles for them to get over that make sense.
Yes.
And yeah. So
Things that
they
actually
have
challenge
announced
them.
a season 2, right?
yeah, so like at the end of this episode, it's like they aired like the logo in Japanese and said like 2. So yeah. It was confirmed.
Yay.
Cool.
All right, let's move on to Haikyu, to the top. We got 2 episodes to finish out the mid-season of this. It's episode 12, Vivid. There's that cute scene that kicks off the episode with Bokuto from Fukurodani playing badly because his team's matches are taking place in this arena that's like the sub-arena of this complex. So there's just one court, and it's not huge like the main arena is, and so he's super depressed and he can't play well. And Karasuno have moved on to the second round, meanwhile, and like in between matches, they meet up with their alumni, like the former captains, Tashiro and Kurokawa. And Tashiro, dude, that guy had the craziest bags around his eyes. He like almost looked like an owl or something. It was ridiculous. He looked so drugged out. Like I was like, what the hell has happened to you, Tashiro? They ask about Hinata and Kageyama because they're like the 2 cool freshmen, and Daichi compares Hinata to an unknown force because he was unknown coming out of middle school, and Tashiro tells him like, well, Karasuno's kind of an unknown force to all these other schools at this tournament because they don't know how good you are, and you better win your next match to show them. And so that was cute. I also liked as the 2 captains were walking away, the other one was like, I wanted to tell them to win. That was funny. And so the team then like eats lunch in the stands, and they watch Nekoma advance to the second round with some like really nice spike receives off of this team Kiyokawa's
Which we all
ace
knew
spiker.
Nekoma would be in this fucking nationals fight.
Obviously, yeah.
I have a shirt, a Nekoma shirt. I work out in it all the time. I would have been disappointed if they did not make it to nationals. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and seeing all those spikes get returned just makes Asahi feel like real nervous about facing them again at some point, which we all know they will. So Daichi tells the guys they have some downtime so they can go like shop a little bit. They can go look at the merch. And Hinata runs off to find this like the Way of the Ace t-shirt or something. And for a second, it looked like Kageyama was going to stay behind and he's like intensely watching the other matches. These other guys are like looking at him being like, oh man, he's so intense. But then he's like, I need to check out those t-shirts. He like runs off. So yeah, they go back to Bokuto's struggles at Fukurodani, and this was when it was starting to remind me of the Last Dance ESPN miniseries I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, because in episode 3 they talk about Dennis Rodman's like struggles to stay motivated as like a member of the Bulls. Like they would literally need to do things to fire him up. He would talk to the press and be like, I'm just so bored out there. I need to find something to get myself interested in basketball again.
Wow.
And yeah, like, so, like, because, like, looking at Bokuto just from the outside, you might say, like, dude, what are you talking about? You're not motivated. Like, you're in a tournament, you're playing for your life here. Like, you need to be motivated. But even athletes at, like, the highest level sometimes just have this issue where they can't get up for the game. Like, they need something to latch onto. And so they finally sort of convince him, like, hey, you know, since we're in this sub-arena, we're the only team on the court. Everybody is looking at us. And Bokuto's like, huh, yeah, I guess that's kind of cool. But the thing that really gets him going is Hinata shows up to check out the game. And when he sees Hinata, he's like, oh, I gotta play good now. I like that Hinata is like the catalyst for that, of course. But yeah, like, I clearly think that's going to be a weakness for Bokuto, maybe going forward. But we'll see. And for that whole team. But Hinata also like runs into Hoshiumi for the first time, the little giant dude. And they have this very like manga panel style stare down. And it finally gets broken up when Kageyama comes over and looks at the t-shirts and is like, hey, Hoshiumi, how's it going? And stuff like that. Hoshiumi's just happy that his height and his running vertical both beat out Hinata at this point. He's like 5 centimeters taller, so he's quite a bit taller. They watch Hoshiumi lead his team to victory almost single-handedly. He just like fucking destroys this team that he's facing, Kamo Medai. And after the match, he gets a compliment from this reporter / like PR woman, I couldn't really tell, who says it's like amazing how well he played since his opponents are all like 180 centimeters tall on average. And he's only 169. And apparently Hoshumi hates hearing this kind of thing and rants a bit about how being small is not a big disadvantage in volleyball, but it's not the end of the world, like, you know. And his teammate kind of has to come up and be like, dude, she's trying to give you a compliment. Just calm down. So, yeah, Hinata's teammates, they're a little worried about how he'd react seeing Hoshumi, but, like, now he's just more pumped up than ever, like, seeing somebody that's further along than him, but it's, like, the same basic, like, size and, like, position. He's just really pumped up that he's seen that in action. And so at the end of day one, Karasuno meets Nekoma outside the arena, setting up the future match between them clearly. And 40 teams have been eliminated. And then after the credits, there's this really cute scene where the Karasuno guys notice that the Niyama girls team are staying at this really nice hotel next to them. And they're like really envious about like their buffet and their food and all that stuff. But Tanaka's childhood friend, Kanoka, comes over to quickly say hi to him. And she kind of flirts with him a bit. And Enishita's like, Tanaka, dude, I think you have a chance with that girl. And his mind is just fucking blown. And then, yeah, the whole next episode is, a lot of it at least, is going to be about those two, which is interesting.
That is.
Was there anything about this episode you guys found interesting, or?
Not really. Sorry.
I felt like a lot of this episode was just like them sort of trying to find a good stopping point.
Yeah.
For next season, in a place where there's really not a good stopping point.
Yeah, it's this downtime between one, like their first big match and like their second huge match, which will be coming up. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not, it was a necessary thing, but not a great thing for them to do. So I'm just like, well, they managed it decently well, but
well, even
really
in the next episode, they really slow things down.
Yeah. I think I like the next episode a lot, just because. So basically, for the first half of this season, they've been setting up a whole bunch of threads that are clearly going to pay off in the second half of the season when they face these teams.
Yes.
Or like when this girl from Niyama watches Tanaka play, or when he watches her play, or whatever, however that's going to play out. Like them, like in this next episode, they get this like competitive rivalry going, which I really like. But yeah. Yeah, Leo, briefly tell us what happened in episode 13.
So episode 13 it's funny because apparently that was my synopsis and I had no idea. So Bcom and I realized this just before we recorded and quickly scrambled to see if we could piece something together. And then after we watched the episode, we were like, not much actually happened.
Yeah, it only focuses on a few key things, and that's it.
Yeah, so like the first
it's
one...
It's not wrong, just kind of correct.
Yeah, it was... so like basically the first thing is there's the hot chick. What's her name?
Kanaka
and the other guy, and like he just eventually just like turns her down for some reason, right?
Well, okay, so first of all, we get the backstory that they were like childhood friends, and he gave her like all this confidence to become like a good volleyball player and stop being shy and like about her height and everything, and just like feel awesome about herself. And so she really likes him for that from back then. But yeah, so he like meets her outside the hotel. And they're being really awkward, right? And I think this guy comes up to her, and he thinks it's her boyfriend, but it's her cousin actually, who she calls like Nissan, like her brother. But like
the way
she doesn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, what you're saying is Nissan, but like I just think of it as Nissan, like the
car.
The car.
I think of that every time I think of Nissans now as well. Like, it's funny. So yeah, like he thinks that he's misread the situation between her and him, and that she's got this city boyfriend, and so he basically is like, forget everything I said, whatever. And then like he leaves, and she's like, I think I just had my heart broken. She's not really sure, but yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad but true.
And then nothing else happens until they end the episode with starting a match, and then that's where it ends.
Yeah, they sort of build up this team in Arizaki who they're going to face as the second part of the season
like
starts.
Watching each other like practice like setups and spikes, and they're like kind of getting intimidated by it. I know they get intimidated by their fans who are like really well trained at cheering, and they're like, holy shit.
They are like they have a serious. It's almost like I feel like everybody who's been on a sport team has had that moment, or I don't know. Maybe some of you are like the expensive team in that situation, but you know you're like from this little town and you go out to this big high school or whatever, and they have this huge dedicated section, and your high school has like nothing, and you're just like, well, we look like shit, don't we? You know. I had a lot of issues like that with swimming. So
this is definitely one of the coolest cheering sections in the show. Like, I forgot to mention basically to Leo, I think we kind of touched on it at some point, but like the cheering sections during the big matches are some of the coolest parts of Haikyu, actually, up to this point.
They do some really detailed, like, different things for each team for the sections. And I think that has to do with Japan has a lot of traditions like that as a culture, too.
Mm-hmm. I really liked how their star player, like Atsumu Miya, like the marching band is going, and then he like raises his hand like a conductor and closes his fist, and they stop. Yeah. And then he goes up for his serve, right? And then like he has these like couple fangirls that are like a little too excited, and they start making noise during his serve, which I actually thought was really cool because they were like up as he went up to hit it. But then like somebody had to come over and tell them like, dude, don't talk during their serve. It's not part of the cheering. It was really funny. But like, yeah, I loved that. Like, I loved him like being in control, like they're like the 10th man on the court or whatever, and just going at it. I guess they would be the 7th man on a volleyball court, but yeah. It was really, really cool.
It was pretty cool.
The other part of the episode I really liked was just between Kanaka and Tanaka, like the other scene they had where they sort of, instead of deciding to just like keep flirting with each other, Tanaka like kind of comes to that realization that she is kind of the star player among the two of them now. And like he needs to stand out in this tournament if he wants to be on equal ground with her, and she also tells him like, I want you to watch me out there because like I've gotten really fucking good, and so I'm really looking out for that. Like I really want to see them follow up on that as the second part of the season goes, and like I want him to see her game, I want her to watch his games, and see him get like a great moment and stuff. Like that's gonna be so much fun to watch. Like I love building up those side stories that make you more invested in just more than just the game anyway. So yeah, it was good.
It was a very good episode and a very good season in its own way. Although I'm more excited for next season than this season.
Yeah, I think like viewed as a whole, in the end of the day, like this will probably be a great season. It's just like this has been so much build up, and I can't wait to see it pay off. Basically,
you know my opinion on dual split core anime. I don't think it's the same season. I think
I know. Well, so yeah, if you review this season on its own, like we're gonna do at the end of this podcast, we're gonna give it a score. Like, yeah, I don't think it's great. I think it's fine.
Great, yeah. But I do think it was necessary. It just wasn't the best work that they could do. So
yeah, I agree.
I think they should have just made it like a season and kept going. Like they should be still continuing to play it now. In my opinion.
Okay.
Well, if they were doing that, then it would probably be delayed anyway because of coronavirus. So
that does suck how COVID has just affected everything. Actually, like I personally wonder there weren't a lot of like standout endings to a lot of these shows. We've gone through most of them now, so I can just say I almost wonder if part of that is when these shows should have been ending. That would have been the start of COVID, especially in Japan, because it came there before it came here.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if that's part of why these were just like blah endings.
I don't know, because like it's hard to say. It's really hard to say because
I mean we've definitely had seasons like happen like that before, where it's like, and all the shows didn't end very well, but they were okay, and like these are our reviews. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Just having a natural disaster on this scale happen makes me wonder how it affected it. But I guess we'll never know.
it would have to be different on a show by show basis because like so many shows are like some shows are finished like long before they go to air, and other shows are like working to the last second. So it's hard to say.
So my idea is that most shows start with like a 3 or 4 episode lead.
Oh,
so
no, she's got ideas. We're fucked.
Oh, shit. So like usually we start like, oh, no, we have episode 5 finished or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're airing episode 1 as they're working on episode 6 or whatever it is. But then as it gets closer to episode 12 or 13, that margin is less. And I think at the very end, they're like working on episode 12 and they were like waiting for it. You know, from the TV broadcast studio. So I almost wonder if it did create issues. But who knows? Like, yeah. I guess it's kind of like Eizouken, where you'll just never know what would have happened without everything.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Well,
move on to our final
title
show.
To read.
Yeah, this title is fantastic.
Oh, man. I don't know why you're making me read it, but I'll do it. Farewell, beloved fans of our beloved reviewers. Worry not, as long as suck you girls keep working hard, so too will our reviewers. When you think of our heroes, remember this. When you help others get their fuck on, you only help yourself get your fuck on. You know, that's actually very true in the sex world. When you help others get their fuck on, you can be assured that will come back to you and you will get your fuck on. That's very accurate.
Interspecies reviewers, everybody.
God.
I'm just saying, the more people you include in your orgy, the bigger your orgy will be.
Okay.
So, you know.
Wise words from Kat.
Yes. So I don't know. This episode started as a reflection episode, which I thought was a little strange for the last episode. And they bring out these suck you cards. These suck you girl cards from like all the girls they've fucked
business
in
cards.
all of the episodes.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh man, wasn't that great? That time that I fucked that girl and she got me off that second time at the end. And then she wrote me a note about it. And it's wonderful. And I'm just like, but why? This isn't baseball. Like... It reminded me of baseball cards, except like some of the notes were weird. Like, oh, I'm so glad I was able to suck you off to completion. It's like, no, that's wrong. It shouldn't be on a baseball card.
It's okay, Kat.
What's okay, Leo?
To have sex workers as trading cards.
As baseball cards?
Trading cards, yeah.
Yeah, sex worker trading cards. Actually... Why is that not a thing in the porn industry yet?
I mean,
is this a $1 million idea?
Is this what we should do a Kickstarter on? Like porn industry sex cards? Interesting. I don't know. So meanwhile, Krim is getting spices from this old tree this entire episode, which I thought was a weird placement.
I think they just needed him to be someplace else, and this was just
they
what
needed
they
him
came
to
up
be gone because
Yeah.
they're fucking devils this episode, and he can't fuck devils because he's an angel.
Yep, exactly.
I do wonder if they're going to bring him back for a season 2, because to me he's such a popular character that him being
Krim?
absent, because you have to admit Krim is a super popular character.
Yeah,
he's part of the main cast. He would,
and so like him
reading
being
the
gone,
manga, he comes back. Okay. Nothing changes. They just needed him to be someplace else the episode. That's all there is.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, him being gone in the last episode makes me think that maybe there will be a season 2. Because to me, it would be like if Naruto ended and Sasuke wasn't in the last story arc. And they were just like, well, he exists in the world of Naruto. And see you guys, bye. Like, you know. So to me... him being absent from this episode almost guarantees that there will be a second episode. What do you guys think?
I could see it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I have like a bleaker look on the last episode of the show. It's like I just kept feeling like they did sort of like a best hits thing this episode, where they kind of like re-experienced a lot of the best brothels in a way.
Yeah, and I think that's was good for a show like this.
I guess so. I was just like, I'm not seeing anything like really new. So, like, because I had already been complaining the last few episodes of them, like, kind of running low on, like, new cool ideas. And so to see them be like, oh, so let's do best hits now, and, like, Crim's not here, I'm just like,
it wasn't
they
a
didn't
great
know how to
episode.
end this. Yeah.
Like, the first place they review, this demon hole place, they don't even show the sex part, which really infuriated me, honestly.
Yeah, right?
Because to me, if I'm
Things
going to
that make
watch this,
Kat mad when they don't show the
demand
sex.
30-second scenes of them fucking these girls, all right? This is important.
See, I actually agree with Kat here, which I'm surprised at myself. But, like, yeah, I was like, this is what the show is about. Why are we not doing this? What's going on?
Yeah. And I also thought it was absolutely infuriating that they've been to all these demon succubus places and they never actually went to this demon hole place that they got recommended in the third episode? The third episode or something like that.
Yeah.
That was absolutely ridiculous to me. I totally thought that fancy succubus place was this place. So to me, I'm just like, what the fuck? And the recommendation card that they got from that politician was apparently really important because they go and show the card and they basically get treated like kings.
Yeah.
Like these people are like, oh fuck, this card, oh no. Like, run, get all the best bitches, basically. So they get...
The devils have very specific conditions.
Yes, exactly.
So, it's awesome.
So they get, like, all this wine before sex, and they get to pick whoever they want of all of these demons. They pick their best, demons. And they get this lecture, basically, about how demons, their whole system revolves around these contracts. And I guess that card that he gave them, that politician, is a extension of his contract with that brothel. And their contract with that brothel is important enough that, like, no, we're going to treat you like the best. And they explain that all demons have almost a contract fetish. And so wording is very important. And we talk about how there's like this infamous issue of demons being the worst wives possible. But really the problem is that when you propose to a girl, like a very common phrase that dudes say is like, I want to make you the happiest girl ever.
Yeah.
Like, blah, blah, blah. Will you please spend your life with me?
When they're a wife. Yeah.
Exactly. So
she's
you
like, I don't have to do
proposed to
anything
her.
then, okay.
The contract you said was that I'm going to make you the happiest wife ever. So that demon's like, well, then I don't give a fuck. Like, your job is to make me happy all the time. Whereas if you propose to them and be like, let's be the happiest two people together, then they'll be the best wife ever. So that's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Well, but then they also said, like, they would only care about you and not any, like, kids that you have.
Kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you almost have to, like, be very specific. I imagine, like, a demon contract wedding, and you spend, like, 25 minutes, like, reading this very specific thing that you've gone over with a lawyer.
I think a good wording would be, let's have a happy family together.
No. So you'd have to say so much. You'd have to be like, let's be very happy together. Let's have beautiful children who are also happy. Blah, blah, blah. You'd have to use so many words. You'd have to sit there and read this long document that your lawyer has prepared specifically.
You mean like a contract?
Yes.
A ridiculously in-depth prenuptial agreement.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a little interesting, but I guess it's all foreplay in the end, right? That's the idea. This is just all their fetish is contracts. So, and then that girl politician who suggested the whole thing is shown in this bath. Mostly, I think, just because then you can see her naked for several minutes at a time.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that was mostly what that scene seemed to be for. Yeah.
And they talk about, like, oh man, it sucks at the review for this place.
And she's like a gigantus lolly, isn't she?
Yeah, she's huge.
Yeah.
She's gigantic.
Yeah.
She's like gigantic with no boobs.
I was like, I see what they're doing here.
They focus way too fucking much on the fact that she has no boobs. I'm just like, listen, we get it. Like, she's a prepubescent girl-looking chick. You don't have to be like, ooh, look at that. Ooh, like all the time. All right.
Yeah.
So she talks about how annoying it is that they just now got around to reviewing this place because it bumped their reviews as a species a lot. And, you know, if that had happened, maybe she would have won this election, and she didn't win, and she's annoyed. And this little magician that Krim fucked visits the Demon Lord. And I was annoyed at this part a lot because she talks about all the shit that she wants to do with his cum. And then they don't speak about it ever again. And I just have to wonder if it's going to be an episode, you know, if it's going to be in the next season, or if there's going to be a next season.
The person you're referring to as a little magician that Krim fucked, everybody fucked. She's the one who made the clones of herself.
Demi or whatever her name is.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
her.
that was different than the...
Same person.
That's crazy that she has, like, that whole place, and then she also does stuff on the side.
Yeah, she's pretty powerful.
She probably just, like... I guess when you're that powerful, you can be anywhere you want in a way.
Yeah.
Especially in cool.
the world that is.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, the lolly demon wants to make airplanes, and she's all excited about it. And the little magician...
what the show is suggesting is that this is another world that sits beside ours.
Our world. Yeah.
Yes.
They want to steal our technology. Like steam engines and bullshit.
Yeah, so they want our technology, and the lolly demon is like, airplanes sound amazing. I want you to make airplanes. That's so cool. Like, I wish I could live in the other world with airplanes. And then the magician is like, hey, but you know what they do with sex, right? And she's like, what do you mean? and she goes in this in-depth conversation where she's like, listen, in the other world, they don't know how to make safe sex. So what they do is they put this plastic thing on top of the dude's dick. And then he just sticks it in, and that's all. And she's like, what do you mean that's all? And they, like, freak out. Like,
how in the world is that safe? At all. She says, yeah.
That's no guarantee of safety. How do they prevent pregnancy? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, they just don't. They just have to, like,
they don't
rely
have magic.
And she's like, no, I'd rather live in this world. That's fine.
I remember, like, back in health class in, like, high school, I think they said condoms were, like, 97% effective, though, or something, or like pretty high. Maybe it was 92% or something. I don't know. They're pretty effective.
I mean, yes, but compared to magic, which is probably 100% effective, probably.
Yeah.
They're like, did you hear about that lady? Like, oh my god, that sometimes doesn't work. Like, I don't know. But yeah, and then they go back to just like the inn and then the tavern. And everyone is praying. Like, they do this weird stance where they pray for the new year.
Yeah, it's just their New Year's Day thing.
Yeah, so they just, like, make this weird pose, and they all pray, like, oh, I hope the new year is great. And Krim is like, what's happening? What are you guys doing? I don't understand. And they're like, we're praying to God. And he's like, but all the angels have no idea you do this every year, and we don't give a fuck.
He doesn't know.
And they're all like, you can't say that. You're going to destroy their religion. And everyone's all upset, which is interesting. And then they decide that they need to have sex with the best person that they've fucked all year from last year to begin the new year in order for it to be a good year. And they think a lot about who they want to fuck based on that. Some of them want to go back to the bird girl place with all the like half bird, half girl people. The short dude wants that marionette place again. Krim picks the hyena girl. They can't decide. They end up going to the mushroom girl's place just to see what's going on. And like, it's so booked and crazy that they can't even get in. And she's like, listen, your review did a shit ton for us. Thank you so much. We're booked like 4 months in advance. But sorry about you. Looks like you guys didn't make any advance, appointments. Here, why don't you go to this place? And she like gives them a recommendation card. And then she's like, if you don't like it, then I'll give you a body job.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like a small fairy the size of your dick can give you an effective, like, what is that? Like a blowjob on the very tip of your penis and just rubbing you down on the rest? Like, what? First of all, what the fuck would that entail? Second of all, I don't feel like that's going to be that great.
Oh my god. These are the questions you have. What the fuck?
Well, and I also really like the part where she mentions that because fairies are about the size of the average person's dick, like them explaining how small these girls are made this brothel like hugely popular with most species, because no matter what species, there are always dudes who have insecurities about how big their dick is.
Oh, yeah.
And so going to this fairy place where all of the girls are about the size of the average dick makes them feel really good about themselves.
God.
Could you imagine going to a brothel just to be like, yeah, my dick's as big as your body. I'm going to shove it in you.
Mm-hmm.
Ay, ay, ay.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You guys are so quiet.
I was just like, I want this show to be fucking over.
You really want it to
I'm
be
like,
over. Come
hurry
on,
up,
you
Kat.
know it's
Just
the turn.
hurry up.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about, but like if I was just watching the show on my own, I would be so over it at this point. I don't know.
Really? That's
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
I don't know. So they get recommended this dream place. Basically, you have your best sex dream of all time. You wake up, you've splooged yourself. Then you can fuck the girl who gave you the sex dream as much as you want. She's slightly attractive.
Yeah.
They all have a great time. It's wonderful. However, I don't think that would be as fun as having sex at an actual brothel.
No, probably not. But I mean, you're like reliving the experience, I guess, that
Yep.
you had a lot of fun at. So I can understand how that could be fun. I also think it's like earlier in the series when they went and fucked the girl who looked exactly like Majory or whatever. It's morally and ethically wrong, probably, to do this, but whatever. You know.
Yeah. And then at the very end, that dude that was like almost
lizard.
30, who was like, I'm a virgin. He like turns into a wizard because he turns 30 and he hasn't had sex.
Yeah, because there's that. I've seen this joke before, but like if you make it to 30 and you're still a virgin, you turn into a wizard, and that's what he
Yes.
did. He made it to 30 and he turned into a wizard. And everybody's like, "Holy shit!"
That's kind of funny.
It's good.
I had this debate with someone. If you knew that if you waited until 30, you would be a wizard and you'd have unlimited power, and then you could fuck as much as you want, would you do it?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, of course.
Both of you? Yes.
It would suck, but like, I don't know. It's a good question,
But
actually, though.
your life is a third over. Like,
Yeah, but you can have plenty of great sex.
Yeah,
in your
but now
30s.
I have unending power and I can fuck like crazy. So
but
Yeah,
all
that's-
of your
this
best,
seems
like
like a good
sexiest
trade-off.
years are behind you because
You're
everyone
not-
is like
fuck that.
sexiest.
There's plenty of sex I can have in my 30s. That's great.
Well, yes, you can have sex in your 30s. That's great. But let's be honest. Most very attractive people are most attractive in their 20s.
And what says I'm not fucking 20-year-olds in my 30s? It's a
Exactly.
fucking wizard.
what the fuck?
Are you crazy here? Like,
Okay.
I'm a wizard. I have like ultimate power. Like, there's so many things I can control now.
I would not take that. I would not take that deal. I could not wait until 2 more years to have sex at all. No. There's
You're not
no
thinking
way.
about the long game.
Yeah, Cat
The
can't
long
even go
game.
2 years. And Bcom and I are just like, oh yeah, of course I could go 30 years.
Also, as
it
a
suck.
wizard, Wadoom, I'm 20 years old again. Well, look at me. Like, I have the body of a 20-year-old because I wizarded myself.
Very
You
true.
wizarded yourself.
I wizarded
Wizarded
myself.
myself, Harry. I did it.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ.
All right, and that is the end of the last episode of Interspecies Reviewers.
Ever.
Ever. Well, no.
Wait,
No. I
do you
think there
think-
will be a season 2.
You really
And
do?
if
I was getting ready to
there
ask,
is
do you
a
guys
season
really
2?
think they'll do a season 2?
I
yes.
think they will. Yes.
I think they will, and I will force you to watch it, and I'll laugh the entire time. as you
The
roll your
material,
eyes.
the material is out there, so they have the material to make a season 2.
Oh, yeah.
So
The material's
what
been
other
sitting
shows
on Pornhub this whole
Did
time.
you? What other shows did you watch, Bcom?
Okay, so I just I'm gonna list a bunch of shows that I finished. I'm not really gonna talk about each of them in depth. Like, I'm just gonna say, hey, if you want to talk to me more about these, just come visit our Discord and ask me about them. Or if Kat and Leo want to know anything specifically, I'll tell them now. But the shows I finished were 22/7, which had a cute ending. Budokan, the idol show, was fun, but I didn't love the ending of that. I want to see more badly. I hope that gets a season 2. I finished Nekopara, which was surprisingly entertaining the whole time. Science Fell in Love, so I tried to prove it, was like really awkward and cringy most of the time, but there were a couple episodes that were pretty fun. Smile Down the Runway, I think I talked about this a couple times over the course of the season, it was pretty rough as an anime adaptation goes. Like, I might recommend reading the manga of that instead. It's not a bad story, but I just think the way that they adapted it was not as good as it could have been. Room Camp, which is like the Euro Camp short, you could just watch through that in like 30 minutes. It's so short, but like it's fun. It's nice. It did eventually have all of the characters in it. For a while, it seemed like Rin wasn't going to show up, but she's there.
Was it just like a nice little filler while you wait on season 2?
Exactly. It's just like a bite-sized filler thing. It keeps the characters going. It fleshes them out a little bit, which is nice because like they needed that a little bit. But it's no season 2, which is coming, but we're not getting it yet. And Isekai Quartet 2 is trash. And the ones I really plan to finish, but I haven't finished yet, are Magia Record and My Hero Academia Season 4, which I'm close to the end of, but I just haven't finished yet. So, yeah, if you want to ask me any more in-depth thoughts about those shows, just, come to the Discord, hit up the anime chat, and we'll talk about it.
Cool. I'm still caught up with Black Clover. They had just kind of actually finished this Devil arc, and are basically starting Devil Arc Part 2 right now. Which is, these episodes are kind of boring because they're just like getting story plot points out. They're not like fighting or really doing magic stuff. So like sludging through like the politics and what's going to happen with like the Clover Kingdom next and blah, 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 blah. So I'm just waiting for them to start fighting again because that's when the show's good. Come on.
Yeah, for sure. It's like Haikyu with like, I'm waiting for them to play games again.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Have you watched anything else, Kat?
Well, I've considered trying to go back and try to watch Smile Down the Runway because I liked it a lot. Episodes like 1 through 3, which I watched. And mostly I just watched Attack on Titan again instead of watching any of these because they weren't great. I mean, Nekopara, Bcom, I don't even know how you fucking watched it, honestly.
Oh, it was a group watch, but it was a fun group watch. Like, it was good times.
And Science Fell in Love, I was excited for, and I tried watching a few episodes, and I was just like, this is stupid. This is dumb.
Pretty much.
Okay, I'm glad I never started it, because I wanted to watch it also, but never got around to it.
Yeah, it wasn't as good as I was advertised to be. I'm hoping for better this season. There actually are some decent ones this next season. So,
yeah, but a lot of shit got canceled, so it's gonna be interesting next episode.
I know. I was so bummed for some of them that got canceled. Like even some of the non-anime stuff that got canceled, I was sad for. But the anime stuff, I was like, why?
Well, you gotta people come first, obviously. Like safety of people working comes first. So I totally understand. But.
Okay, to me, you can make anime from home because most of it is on a computer, right?
I mean, a lot of it is like, a lot of it is digital drawing these days too, as opposed to hand drawn. But I don't know. It's so interesting because like at anime offices, people work so close to each other. Like I feel like they're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other in between and having meetings.
Yeah, and just
probably
like
the conversation is more organic. Like they can still talk now, but the conversation they have is not as organic.
Well, I would also suppose they ran into the same problem you did, Kat, was that they would need these programs that they use at home also to do it.
They would need very specialized software and stuff, which it would be interesting to see if they've...
Yeah.
I think maybe like the anime industry will grow from this and there will be more people working from home and everything. It'll be interesting for sure.
Well, if it's anything like... the anime Shirobako we were talking about, like a lot of those like key animators and stuff do work from home, and they have people like either come pick up the cuts or they probably upload them to the server remotely from their home. But yeah, I don't know. There's still a whole bunch of people that work in the office.
I would love to have like an interview with an actual person who works at an anime production studio and see how close our ideas of how they work are from like reality, because I'm sure there are things that we just don't get.
Oh yeah, for sure. That'd be really interesting. It's hard to like track people down who speak English well enough to like have a full conversation like that. Yeah. There are some Westerners who have like worked with anime production companies who have written articles and stuff about this kind of thing, but even those, like, I always feel like I wish they were more in depth about like the entire process, and they sometimes don't know about like, especially like the production company side of things down, like why all these decisions get made, what the timeline is, what the budget is, and all that stuff. So, yeah,
I agree.
All right, so we talk about our final ratings on the shows we watched. All right, Chihayafuru 3. You guys made fucking reviewing the show of living hell.
We had to. You rated it 10 out of 10. Like, spoiler alert.
Yeah,
but that's not like.
You sound a little
somehow.
You sound a little butthurt in this.
Oh yeah, it's fun. I wrote a whole thing. So like, first of all, I just want to say like I was bouncing back and forth between 9 and 10 and like 9.5. And then I rewatched the last 2 episodes recently, and I was thinking back on how like the whole season built up to this point, and just like the deeper character interactions we got this season, and a lot of focus on like some of the like old guard of the character world, like Harada and Inokuma, the former queen, and like their stories. And I was like, okay, no, I think this is like a really in-depth, layered show, and like it's so well presented, and like the way that they get deep into the poems and the meaning of that, and like how fucking Japanese the whole thing is. Just like it, I really like it. Like the deeper you dig into it, the more rewarding it is, kind of thing.
Anytime that it's your favorite thing, no matter what it is, other people are not going to get it in the same way that you do.
So I agree with that. I totally agree with you. Like, and
that's actually a really hard thing because
I agree. Because like it's your favorite. It's like it means like you hold this on a pedestal above like where other people would even read it. Like you view this at like a different level than other people are gonna like connect with it. It's like even if you're just watching Attack on Titan with your boyfriend, you're seeing all these things, and he's like, "What the fuck is she talking about?"
Like I did not watch Yu Yu Hakusho with him for this reason, because I knew my favorite show. If I were to show it to him and he was like, "Whatever," that would upset me.
Yeah.
In the same way that like you showing us Chihayafuru and us being like, meh, it is a little irritating to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to be honest with like our listeners and be like, man, there were some times during the middle of these Chihayafuru like weeks and stuff where I was like watching the episode and I'm just like, how do I make Kat and Leo like this? I don't.
Awesome.
I don't know. I'm so miserable. I hate everything.
Poor Bcom.
I like to believe that like, oh, if we were watching like some new season of Yu Yu Hakusho, like even if I didn't like it, because like I've started to watch Yu Yu Hakusho a couple times and like stopped because I'm just like, this isn't the right time, or I'm just like not completely into this yet, even though it has a really good first episode. I don't know, it was just like I couldn't get into it completely yet. I will eventually. But then I was like, yeah, and if I was like watching like Buso Shoujo Machiavellianism with Leo, I wouldn't shit on that when I was like, oh, wait. I would shit on that fucking relentlessly. But like, even at the same time, like when we were reviewing that, Leo, like I found things to talk about and joke about like the whole time. And like, I think you did that near the end of Chihayafuru, which I really appreciated, because like, I think you guys realized that I was like fucking miserable, like covering the thing by myself the whole time.
I was like, I figured you wouldn't cover it the second season. I was like, no, he won't bring it back.
I really did try to find. All right, there's got to be at least one thing I can comment on.
yeah, exactly.
And it was really hard.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. Like, I'm excited to see like the next season where it goes. I'm really hoping we get it before like 2026. Like that would be nice. I don't think I'll review it on the podcast though. Like it's just because like I don't want to put like all of us through that again. Like I think it was just like for me especially
me sad in a way that you've like chosen to be like my favorite thing. I'm gonna keep it to myself, but at the same time I'm like,
it's just like I'm not to myself. Like I'll still talk about it with anybody who wants to talk about it. I'm part of like the Chihayafuru like Discord and subreddit, so like I have plenty of people to go talk about Chihayafuru with, and they're all like, "Yay, it's great," or "No, I hate the way it's going." At the end of the show, there's plenty of people who feel that way too. But yeah, like I don't think I'll subject our podcast to this again, because I think it just
Christ.
it made me just have all this hatred for you guys over the course of some of these weeks. I would go complain to friends like Andrew from the Recovery of Anime Junkie podcast, and he'd be like, "Oh, I know, come here, let me hug you."
Let me comfort you in their dislike of Chihayafuru. How dare they not love it the same way you do?
So anyway, yeah, I just decided okay, I'm going to rate this season the same as the previous two. I'm going to give it a perfect score. It's my favorite thing. And I think they've continued to do it justice here. There was no step back in production or anything. And I think the story is still going strong, though I'm apprehensive about the way that the romance is sort of driving things into a dark place now. But when I rewatched the last episode and I saw how Arata is building his club, and how there's the new club members at Mizusawa who are all promising, I'm okay, no, there's good things that are going to come out of all this too, and it's going to come back around. At least I think so. Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm glad you're so excited. I'm sorry that we were less than enthusiastic about this for you.
Yeah, it's fine.
I wanted to. It just was not our thing.
Yeah, no, it's not for us.
I don't want you guys to not. I don't want you guys to lie and say you like something when you don't. That's the last thing I want. It's just I felt sometimes there could have been something you commented on a week where I was just here's the whole review. What did you guys think? And you're just crickets.
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 Sorry.
All right, I'll get my score.
I'm sorry, Bcom.
Yeah,
we'll do better.
Band-Aid off, Leo.
All right, I'm giving it a big 3 out of 10. My big complaint would be you're going to start off basing your anime off a maybe one of the most boring competitions I have ever seen. So that just sounds like a disaster. This one's just a nitpick, but the way they announced the poems was weird, and the best way I can is just very distracting. I'm what are you doing with your voice? I don't know. It's probably a traditional thing. Whatever. That's just a nitpick. I think Chihaya is just a fucking airhead, and I normally don't like airheaded characters. I don't like dumb characters, unless it's in a comedy and it's done for comedy's sake, which this is not what this show is. But you know what? That's probably what some people love about her. We know that's why you love her.
That's part of it. I think even in the beginning when we first started, I was I think you'll like Shinobu more, and then Shinobu played a pretty big role in this season, but she wasn't a main, so she wasn't always around to be.
Yeah, I didn't think she. Yeah, I was going to say I don't think she was there enough for me. Mm-hmm. The art style I think it's very boring. A lot of just straight or just perfectly rounded lines. I felt like the show's color was bland and nothing ever popped or anything like that.
Definitely has a very specific color palette, and
it's its own thing. Yeah, and I don't like this palette. I do not have anything positive to say about the show, just because I just did not enjoy anything about it, and I do not get the appeal of Chihayafuru. Sorry.
I like the characters, but I found them a little bit too idealistic. And I think that the reality of a show about something like this would probably not... if I was to watch it in real life, a actual tournament, I would not find it fun. And to me...
Probably not, yeah.
Yeah, and to me that kind of...
Yeah, and that's why I said that hurt this anime right off the start. Was that they based it off this competition that I could never find myself actually just getting invested into.
I mean, wow. I've watched YouTube videos of queen matches in Karata, and it is interesting because they are so fast and stuff, and they do kind of act like everybody does. They try to add a lot of the show of getting into their heads and the strategy that you don't see on the screen. But yeah, if you were just an outsider and you this is just your first time watching this, especially not being Japanese and not having any familiarity with the poems, watching a real match of Karata, you'd just be what the hell is happening? I have no idea what's going on. And I think that's something that they do build up over the first couple seasons and give you an education that you can apply to watching the rest of the show. But yeah.
Even the poetic kind of tone that a lot of Japanese people use to read their poems is so unique and very specific to Japanese poetry that I feel like a lot of people would just be like, no, immediately when they heard it.
Yeah.
So, but hey, I mean, those are things that are unique for a reason, and there are certain people who are going to really like it. And I don't think necessarily the fact that something is weird means it's bad, and I don't want to associate that in any way. Because I definitely like things that are fucking weird, and that's fine.
Oh, we know. Did you give your score, Kat?
Yes. So I think Leo and I both did a 3 out of 10, just because you did a 10 out of 10 Bcom, and we wanted to like moderate that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
If I had gone 9.5, would you give it a 3.5?
I think that if you had done a 9.5, I probably would have done a 4 or a 5.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yes.
I already had my score in here before yours, so it wouldn't change.
Yeah, it was in there already. Yeah.
Okay, next show, keep your hands off Eizouken. I give it a 6.5 out of 10. I really wanted to like this show a lot more. I just don't think it delivered as well. At the end
That's
of
interesting to me that you give it a 6.5 because it is a meaningful show, even if it has downsides.
Well, there was like so many things I wanted. I don't know. I wanted to like learning the process of making anime more, and it never delivered that for me. So because at like the end of every episode, I never had really any desire to see what happened in the next one. And that drives,
really?
Yeah, that's what drives me to watch a lot of the anime, because I'm like, ooh, what happens next? Which is when we get to Dorohedoro, which is why it would kill me when I'm like, fuck, I gotta watch this next episode, but I need to wait before we record the next one or something like that.
Did you like Shirobako though, Leo?
I didn't watch it.
Okay, because it almost makes me wonder how you would have thought of it in comparison to Eizouken, because like it's so they're similar in some ways and very different in other ways.
One of my other complaints is the characters. I didn't really find any of them memorable, except for Sayaka's face, which still bothers me to this day. I think it's got to be the teeth. But this is something that I've already said before. I do like how we got to see the process of what they do to make an anime, but I felt like this would have been better styled as a documentary instead. They could have made a documentary that was an anime, but they tried to have a story that happened at the same time, and I just don't think they hit that part well. And they could have like just taken it out and just left like the documentary stuff in there, and they probably need to put some more in there. But I think that I would have enjoyed that a whole lot more.
Yeah, I think like you never really connected very much with those like playful, creative sequences like inside of Midori's head as she's like coming up with the anime, and like the show was very badly trying to make you connect with that, and some people just did not. Like some people were just like
Kat said that herself, and I totally agree. It's just like when those scenes came up, I would just almost kind of zone out a little bit and just wait for the show to fucking come back on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was me too, and I just did not like those very, very creative, very almost childish scenes that I was just like, you can't. That's not interesting to me. I'm almost interested to who those scenes were interesting to, because they were so out there that even to me, I'm like, well, I don't give a fuck. So I don't know. It was half like very interesting anime and half like random expedition into nonsense fantasy land that I don't give a fuck about. So it was a weird anime in general for me. So I give it a 7.5 just because I did feel like the show did things with like depth and interesting themes that I liked. To me, a show can't be a 7 or above unless it's not a trash show. There are trash shows that I like, but I can't rate them over a 7 to me. Mm-hmm. This show has some depth, so I was able to rate it that, but I don't think that the parts of it that are that imaginative animation are worth anything. So I can't give it over a 7.5.
So I was probably going to give this a 9 up until the last episode, and I was just so disappointed with that animated short.
Wow,
like I thought it fell flat. And so I dropped it down to an 8.5 because like I kind of agree with a lot of stuff that Leo and Kat are saying, but I also just think it did such a good job of like balancing, like showing us like the side of the industry that is these like abstract thinking creative minds who need to be reined in by a supportive producer, like a supporter producer, not somebody who's just like hates them, but like somebody who wants to support them, wants to make the thing the best thing it can be, but also understands how this works and what the timetable is, and like can institute these limitations on their wild and crazy thinking and get them all going in the same direction at the same time to make a final product. I really liked seeing that, and I just thought like a lot of the animation and a lot of the art design and stuff was like really inspired and different and just interesting to look at throughout the show. And yeah, I grew to really like these three main characters quite a bit. I think they all had their good moments, and yeah, they're just such a fun group. I would love to see more with them. If it's like a movie or something, that would be fun. But yeah, I don't know if they could sustain another full season. And if Science Saru wants to just move on from this to other projects and never returns to this, that's fine too. But I think they created something pretty cool here, and they could do more fun stuff with it, whether it's an OVA or what. But yeah,
I will say I think they ended it on a good stopping point.
Yeah, I think they found a good
definitely
place to
give them that.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think I may have also subconsciously set the bar a little too high. And so when I watched it, which is why I was like disappointed with an episode, and I'm like, I didn't find that interesting at all.
Yeah, I was kind of struggling with that because before I even watched an episode, I think people had watched 3 already and were raving about it. And so, and I had seen, well, actually, that's not true because I had seen half an episode at Anime NYC, but I hadn't seen like the first couple episodes yet. So I went into it with pretty high expectations too, and I had to like sort of like amend
readjust
that once I had seen the show and be like, okay, so this is what it really is. All right, I see. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, it invaded.
Next one.
Oh man. Okay. I felt like this anime was very. It invaded was a very. It's a very thoughtful anime that almost has too many things going on. It's very smart in some ways, but it didn't faceplant on the ending. But I didn't like the ending, but it at least didn't destroy the entire anime for me.
Yeah.
So I think it goes into deeper plots, which I like. So I gave it a 7, but I couldn't give it over a 7. So that's what I gave it, a 7.
Yeah, this show reminds me a lot of the anime The Perfect Insider. Except with that show, I strongly felt that it did faceplant on the ending, and it pulled a lot of shit out of its ass as it went through to make things try to make sense.
That's the problem
I've
with
never seen The
psychological
Perfect
anime.
Insider.
They do that.
Yeah, you would be super annoyed at this show because like it's something that we would definitely like at the outset, Kat, but it totally just pulls shit out of its ass as it goes along. It's a very interesting show, though. Despite that, still like I still think back about it a lot, but it just didn't bring it together. And whereas this show, I think like all those loose threads like mostly just came together at the end in like a pretty satisfying way. I don't think the characters were insanely like lovable or likable or memorable even. Like I think the main character
none of them were like, I love that character. I'm very excited to see them again. I didn't feel that way about any of the characters.
Nari Hisago is like the one who comes closest to that, I feel like, and Hondo Machi maybe a little bit, but the rest of the cast was just sort of like there, and also the villain John Walker's like motives were like kind of simplistic in the end, and we sort of basically got it from like earlier in the series, like what he was probably trying to do. So yeah, I don't know. I still think like though there's so few good thriller mystery detective shows that actually like land the ending in a decent way. So I just said I'll give this a 7.5 because I think this is pretty good. Like this is well above average as far as thriller shows go.
It's more than I thought I was going to get out of it, I'll admit. So it's better than average for this kind of show.
Pretty cool songs from Miyavi in it along the way too. I think like the animation could have maybe been a little bit more polished at times, but it still looked fine. So yeah,
I did find they had a good song. Like
I like the ED.
cast.
ED was fucking awesome.
ED's great.
Whoever they had handling the songs for this show was really good because they would even go into like a random song that they had never used in the anime in a episode or something in a very dramatic moment, and it would be like, oh fuck, yes, like oh shit. And that's not something that I find in very many anime at all. So
yeah, it's rare.
I would actually be interested to see who they had on staff that was doing all of that.
Well, they had the artist Miyavi record a lot of these songs. Like, so a lot of it is them, and they've recorded stuff for anime before, like the OP to Kokoku and
and we all know that was amazing, even though Kokoku was shit. But I mean, they can't have made all those songs just being like, oh, the anime, because it's not that good of an anime. So I'm kind of curious on their whole album now.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Yeah, I don't really know.
I gave it a 7 out of 10. I do think this is a pretty good psychological anime. And I felt like it's been a while since we've gotten one as decent as this.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah, shows like this tend to start falling apart or just like pulling things out of their ass, trying to make sense of things, but then all it does is make it worse. This one, for the most part, managed to keep its facts pretty straight. A lot of stuff made sense for the most part until the end. I mean, it could have really gone bad. We don't know. But it stayed in its lane with a satisfactory ending, I would think. I also think a lot of people may have slept on this one, and they should probably go check it out.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth watching. Like, it has some really cool ideas in it, even if a lot of it seems like Inception mixed with other things, like other movies we've seen already, but it's still cool to see in anime form.
And I think if you are a fan of the first season of Psycho Pass before it kind of went sideways, you definitely need to check it out, because I can almost guarantee it'll be something you will enjoy in this genre. So,
yeah, for sure.
So, wow, that's why I almost gave it the exact same score.
Yeah, that was really
close. It is
weird
when that works out that way.
We're pretty close on Dorohedoro as well.
Yep.
So I gave this a 7.5. Mostly the reason I'm scoring it that low, even though I still think that's a very good score, is because the story just didn't completely ever come together for me, and they also left us hanging like completely at the end. Like, it's like, obviously you need to keep watching this.
I could write you a couple pages of questions I have.
Yeah, there's so many questions. Like, yeah.
But I felt like it paced them well enough.
Yeah.
And then would just feed you a little bit to keep you edging the whole time.
Yeah. But I feel like this almost coasts to a 7.5, like, just on like the weirdness of the show and like the insanely beautiful background art of the show and really cool animation, like I talked about with the baseball episode, which I absolutely loved.
Dude, there's like so many screenshots of like the backgrounds of like the towns and stuff that like I would almost like a frame of that on my wall. That's so like, good.
The church in the final episode that they kept showing off, I was just like, oh my God, look at this fucking church. It's so beautiful. Yeah. So I definitely appreciate all of that effort that went into it. I'm very curious to see. They have to make a second season because, they've done too good of work to not do it.
Yeah. Dorohedoro will have a second season.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've stopped and Netflix is behind it too. So I think that increases its odds.
For sure.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I agree with Bcom. Visually, this show can just be so fucking amazing at times. Like, moments just like I just want to pause and like look at all the details in the backgrounds. Just like, who do you have doing this shit? They're putting a lot of work in this. There's this show it's sometimes very dark and it has dark humor, but I think the comedy just nailed it for me.
The comedy is really spot on and good.
Yeah.
Like, they do a good job of balancing the weird eclectic nature of the show with like just some comedy to kind of balance it out, which is good.
Yeah. And I find almost every single character very memorable in my head. Like, I love like all their little quirks or designs, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yes, there has been a ton of questions not answered, but that also is what left me craving to watch the next episode.
True.
I wanted to find an answer, and that's just good writing, really.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
If you make your viewer crave what's next because you haven't answered something, I think you're doing a pretty good job. Yes, I definitely hope there's a second season. God, it'd be so good. And I hope they get it out, or at least give me some news before I start reading the manga.
Yeah.
What about you, Kat?
Like I said, I really like the show. I give it the same score as I did ID Invaded because I felt like it did have deeper themes.
She's
But
still calling it
personally-
ID Invaded. God damn it.
I will always fucking call it ID Invaded. When it comes back for a season 2, it will be ID Invaded season 2. But it just didn't appeal to me as much as ID Invaded did. So to me, like Dorohedoro is not as like exciting to me. But I do understand that it is a good show objectively, like reviewer wise, and so I gave it the same score.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense, I gave it a 7 as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Sometimes something just doesn't like resonate with you, but you understand. Like,
Yeah.
oh
and
no, but that's a good thing.
When we would go through it, I could get it that you just weren't really. It wasn't really grabbing you and pulling you in at all.
Yeah, it wasn't like my thing, but I
I could tell.
understood.
That, yeah.
I was like, no, but this is a good show. It's just not for me. So
Right. Which
Yeah.
is interesting because you like dark stuff like Junji.
yeah,
Junji
no, I
Ito?
like Junji Ito a lot.
Okay, the next show is Seton Academy. Join the pack. I gave it a 6.5. This is a very basic one. The show is aware of how dumb it is, and it knew
Yes.
how to use it to its advantage. And that's really all I have to say about it.
Yeah, it was silly and like fun to talk about from week to week, but stupid as fuck. But I think that like the spirit in which you picked it, Leo, was that. So
Yeah,
for
basically.
that, it was okay. I gave it a 6, not a 6.5. But I didn't hate it. Like I enjoyed it the entire time that I watched it. So
Dude, shout out to Hina Kino, who voiced Ranka for this show, and who also voiced Hanako in Asobi Asobase. Clearly
Yeah.
one of our favorite voice actors here on the podcast. Like,
Oh, yes.
she killed it. Like, the noises that she would make, like, even as far as the last episode where she's fighting the fucking stupid mammoth, and she's making these, like, crazily high-pitched wolf noises. Like, I just don't even understand how a human being makes those noises. It's crazy. That alone kept the show, like, interesting for me a lot of the time, was just to see her insane performance. Like, it,
Just to
like,
see what noise she would make the next episode for you.
yeah, at the end of the year, I really hope people remember how great this voice performance was, and like when they're talking about like awards and stuff for voice actors, think back at her because like holy shit, what a performance! But it's funny because after the first like episode of the show, I was like, I'm gonna rate this like a 2 out of 10 and drop this shit right now. And then I was like, oh, of course Leo likes it. But then after I had watched like the first 3 episodes, I was like, you know. This show, yeah, like Leo said, it gets it. It gets that it's just really stupid and dumb, and it's going to have a lot of fun with that, and it's going to bring you along for the ride. And I think I was worried early on that Jin would just be this asshole the whole time, who I couldn't stand, but he's like such a secondary character at the end of the day. Like, even in the last episode, like, he's not the main player. He's not the main focus of this anime at all. The main focus is just, like, all these weird
Maple and her
people.
friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, the whole club and making friends and Ranka. That's the focus. So I liked that it did that. I liked that it understood the appeal of the show and kind of just pushed Jin off to the side, like, every once in a while, bringing him
Anne
back.
and
Yeah.
Hitomi had more screen time that last episode.
Honestly, yeah, they really did. Jen was too busy getting nosebleeds from all the fan service, but yeah. So I agree with
There
Kat.
was a lot
Yeah.
of fan service, yeah.
I gave this
Yeah,
a 6 out of 10 as well at the end of the day, because I'm just
Yeah,
like,
if
yeah,
you
this show's
need-
like perfectly fine. Yeah,
A dumb watch to look. Oh yeah, a dumb watch to look at the end of the day, and you don't want to have to think too hard, and you need to unwind.
Mm-hmm.
This would be a good one, really.
I think that Seton Academy is the perfect example of like a show that we all know is not the best show, but we all know is slightly entertaining, and we watch it for like not the intellectual part of it, but just like ha ha ha, that was stupid. Like let's move on, and that's fine. I don't think that's a bad thing.
no, it's not.
So-
We need
No.
those shows sometimes for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So BOFURI. So I gave it a 6.5 because, once again, the show was entertaining, but it had absolutely no deep plot. And to me, it's very hard for me to give shows that have no deep plot more than a 6.5 because there's no depth to it at all. So, but I liked it a lot for what it was. Fun but brainless. And honestly, Maple was really cute. All the stuff in it was interesting. I found Sword Art Online more interesting for the first few seasons just because there were more deep plot points in it.
Yeah.
But really, it's very similar to Sword Art Online, except that it doesn't have like the dark, like, oh shit, people are dying stuff in it.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah, this is not dark at all.
Yeah. So really, like, other than the dark part of it, it is very similar to Sword Art Online. So if you like Sword Art Online but without the depth of plot and the dramaticness, then like totally BOFURI is your style. And I get that. Like, things are not for everyone. So I understand. But I think that in order for something to be like a critical piece of anything, you have to have some deep plot points in it. And for them not to have like anything at all in there, like nothing, was weird to me for something this big, because you can tell that they put a lot into animating it and everything. Like, this wasn't just like a bullshit show, because every season there are a few bullshit shows, correct, Bcom?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, more than a few.
But this felt like they actually thought that this was going to be like one of the top few episodes, like shows of the season.
They tried to make it into that, at least at certain points, with those like Sally fights in the beginning of the show where they were like way more well animated than they really need to be to get the point across.
Exactly.
Like they knew they had something, and so they pushed it.
To me, if you think you're going to have one of the top few shows of the season, you should have some depth of plot in there, and they didn't. So I can't give it over a 6.5, but I did give it a 6.5. So
yeah, for me, it's sort of like Seton Academy in that it knows it's a dumb show at the heart, because like it is a goofy power fantasy show set in an MMORPG where a cute tiny little girl is a fucking monster.
A cute tiny girl is a monster.
Yeah.
And you love that. And you want her to fuck you in bed. Like,
I mean, it was the same in Gun Gale Online, because like the cute tiny...
Yes,
well,
it
she's
was.
tall in real life, but in the game, she's this tiny little girl, and she's a monster with her little pink P90. And something about that is just so inherently funny. And so it just was so much fun to watch the power creep.
There is a pink P90 in Modern Warfare, in COD.
Oh yeah, that's awesome actually.
And it is actually literally part of an anime set.
That's great. They know. Yeah. So like, I think Leo is going to touch on like the animation like as well. So I'm going to more touch on the soundtrack. Like, I think the thing they really need to improve is to make a real soundtrack for the next season of this, because they just had so many of the same insert songs every episode that it got so repetitive. And that was something that was really dragging down my enjoyment of the show towards the end. And I really liked this show. Like, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because like it really kind of, along with Gun Gale, like has revived my interest in MMORPG shows, which are so often just terrible because they're all about doom and gloom and just like, oh, this is the most serious fantasy with me and my harem. And
yes.
I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. But fun, lighthearted shows like this that are just like, they make you understand why people want to play these kinds of games and what they eventually like hope to get out of them, and like the friends they make along the way. Like, yeah, I'll take this show anytime. I just think there's things around the edges with the production they could do to make the next season way better than this one. And I also agree with Kat that they could add more plot, especially now that they've had this whole opening volley of just brainless bullshit as Maple gets stronger. If they want to have an actual plot in the next season, they totally could and still have a lot of fun with that. So
yeah, they could totally make this a more serious show next season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I give it a 7.5 out of 10. I was a little bit disappointed with the animation in this show. If it was better, the show could really, really shine. Especially these last 2 episodes where it was almost nonstop action the entire time. The last 2 episodes, and if that had been animated like extremely well, it'd have been amazing. I will say, though, the animation is on par with Silverlink.
Yeah.
So, I guess I can't really expect much more from them. I really like all the characters a whole lot. I love how Maple is just like unaware of how insanely strong she is. And like she's just how it just makes her so adorable, and she's not in the least arrogant at all. So you can't help but like her.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the characters, I think they're so unique in themselves and then they also got their personalities working so well that like they have a great synergy. Like this is a great like guild to be in. If I was playing a video game, I would love them to death. I am extremely looking forward to season 2. I could not see us not covering it.
I unless like something crazy bad happens, but yeah, I can't see that happening. So.
Yeah, there would, and even if we didn't, it would probably be a mid-season cut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for Haikyu to the top, for as far as mid-season scores or first split core scores go, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, and I kind of explained this at the end of today's like Haikyu reviews. It's just that, yeah, it's a lot of setup, and it's not showing Haikyu at its best necessarily. I do think it's laying a lot of groundwork for what is probably going to be like one of the best cores of Haikyu later this year or early next year, whenever it comes out at this point. And when they start that match against Inarizaki and they go deeper into this tournament. But man, it took a lot of episodes, like 13 episodes to get there is a lot of time spent on like slowly practicing and slowly realizing that Kageyama and Hinata are changing their game a little bit and slowly getting better and slowly practicing some more and then slowly focusing on the manager and then slowly focusing on Tanaka and his childhood crush. Like all this stuff. Like, yeah.
One thing that was interesting is like, I was like, all right, let me compare this to another anime that I did enjoy, which was probably Haruka Receive. And in my head, I'm like, all right, why did I like Haruka Receive, even though it did have the practicing and the matches? And I think it's just because it had maybe a better balance.
It's just better paced. Yeah. Yeah.
Better balance in what way?
Just the pacing, like you said, like there would be they would do the practicing, but they wouldn't overdo it. Like they wouldn't do like 3 episodes of it. They would like do an episode and a quarter, and then the last
3 quarters would be a big game.
3 quarters is a game, or something like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like in my head, I'm like, all right, well, I got to figure out why I liked Haruka Receive better than I'm liking Haikyu. What is it doing differently than the other? And that's basically what I came down to figure it out.
Okay, and that makes sense. I think it's really just about the main characters are men instead of women, and so it's not as appealing to you in that way.
Yeah. I mean, visually, yes.
You're like, well, I can't fuck them, so. But I understand that
actually,
because
I
did not like her.
But I don't want to.
You can physically fuck them, Bcom. It's just you don't want to be there. Yeah.
I gave it a 5 out of 10. I just think there was just like so much practicing, and that was the really boring parts for me. The more I got to learn about the characters, the more the dialogue got better. And I was like, all right, I kind of understand what you're talking about. That's really cool. I understand your personality. This is why this conversation would happen. When they actually played the games, I was like, all right, I'm involved now. I want to see where they go next. Are they going to block this serve, or are they going to block this spike or get this one across? That's cool. I don't really have positives or negatives about it. I'm just very middle line. That's why it gets to 5. I do not hate it. Like, unfortunately, Chihayafuru, it was a chore to watch. But Haikyu was not a chore for me. Sometimes it would dip a little bit when they did the practicing too long, but then they usually finally got a game in on time and it brought it back up. So that's why it's just like so middle of the line. And like you both have said, you're like, this season's lacking a little bit. So
yeah, okay. I'm curious to see how you'll do with next season, because usually I rate Haikyu like an 8 or 9, but this season I did rate it a 7 just because there's a lot of stall episodes. There's a lot of episodes where they don't do a lot. And I don't appreciate that. I don't think it's really what Haikyu is supposed to stand for. To me, Haikyu is supposed to be these very dramatic episodes where you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And it's very sports focused. So I didn't really appreciate this season. There were a lot of just build-up episodes, like Bcom said. Mm-hmm. So not a great amount on its own. So I understand what you're saying, Leo. And I am a little disappointed that you rated it 5 out of 10, but I'm kind of curious how you'll do with next season. So we'll see.
Next season should be basically all action, so yeah.
If they go all action, I can guarantee it will not be a 5.
Yeah, you may end up being like a 6.5 or a 7. It'll be interesting for me to see where you land on there.
Mm-hmm. But it honestly, really, what really saved it for me was that, like, I thought it was lackluster, and then you guys were just like, man, this season is lackluster compared to the other ones. So I'm like, okay, it's just not me hating on sports anime. That's cool. So, like, I really tried to keep a positive perspective when I was watching every episode.
I guess there are some arcs in any anime where, like, there's a lot of build up and it's for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I haven't personally read the anime, so I don't know, but I know with like things like Rurouni Kenshin, where I did read the anime before I watched or I did read the manga before I watched the anime. I was really like, oh my God, what's up with those build up? And then I really liked the end result.
I know I've said this before, but like with I read a lot of fantasy novels. Sometimes they have to like establish the world building, and you just got to trudge through it because it makes the 90% rest of the book so much fucking better.
Right.
Exactly.
So good.
Yeah.
And like, I get that, but I just don't think the pacing was very well.
It's not great to like stack it at the beginning and be like, oh, hopefully people will stay around for the end. I think really what they thought was like, oh, most people have seen the other seasons of Haikyu and they will stay around for the second part of this.
Yeah. That's what they're banking on.
Unfortunately for you, you had not seen the other parts of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's fine. Okay. Our next show and our final one, Interspecies Reviewers.
So yeah, it's time for us to review the reviewers, finally.
Review the reviewers.
Scores.
Yes.
I gave it a 5.5. It's just a very weird, and the most interesting part is to just discuss it, not even watch it.
I think it's weird that you want there to be a second season, but you did rate it so lowly.
I want to talk about the next season.
Okay.
If I wasn't able to talk with you guys each week, I probably never would have finished it.
Yeah,
even if I didn't have read the manga. So
if I specifically didn't have Kat to talk about this with, I would never have finished the show 100%. Like,
yeah. I think having to discuss it with Kat specifically is probably a good point. Like that's really what made it interesting.
Kat's galaxy brain takes on the show are fun.
I liked the pervertedness of it, but I also felt that it was almost like too much at the end. They didn't do enough.
Yeah.
Like if they were gonna go all out like that, they should have just like really made it like a hentai, basically.
Yeah, at first it felt like they were doing that. They were going like balls to the wall, or as Kat would say, vaginas against the wall every episode. And I was just like, holy shit, this is fucking crazy.
And like I told you, they stepped that pervertedness up from what you see in the manga.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Like they didn't just go to the next step. They skipped a couple steps and just went with it.
They did that in like the first 6 episodes, and then
they dialed it back for some reason.
They did, and I'm not sure because it can't have been a response to criticism.
All the criticism, yes, is exactly why they dialed back.
Because they were getting criticism in like the first 2 episodes. So to me,
but they could have been in the 5th episode in production. And then they start getting that criticism, and they're like, shit, we need to dial it back next episode. And then they start dialing it back in the next episode, which would be episode 6.
I mean, it could have also been criticism from the broadcasting companies as well, several of whom dropped them, you know? I don't know.
I think you're both right. Like, maybe that's correct. I was confused because when they first started getting a lot of feedback for it in episode like 3-4, they didn't really change. In fact, they got more aggressive. But you're right that really they probably would have had like 4 or 5 episodes done. So that makes sense. That like that's the point in which they backed off.
For me, I also just felt like, to me, it just felt like maybe running out of ideas. Like, there's only so many crazy ideas you can have. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of this manga. I'm kind of curious to see what other interesting things.
Yeah, there's still plenty of material out there.
Yeah.
That come out of the manga that had like the fire roast meat girl. Because like that to me is so unique, you know. But it'll be interesting. I do think there will be a season 2. I don't know if you guys are excited about it or not, but I am.
I mean, I'm
excited to talk about it.
Yeah. What score did you give this, Cat?
I gave it a 6.5. I acknowledge that it's trash, even though I think it's really fun trash.
Yeah.
So once again, fair rules. I can't give it over a 6.5. So.
Yeah, so like when I was thinking about like what to score this, I went back and like really thought about like my personal experience with the show. And there were 2 things that really hurt it for me. And it's like, one, I wasn't attracted to most of the sucky girls in this show. And as like a borderline porn,
there's so much lolly stuff in it.
Yeah, well, really that's the other big thing. There's so many like just children who are being looted in this show. And I was just like, or people like beings that look like children.
Bcom. They're mushrooms.
Whatever.
They're not children. They're mushrooms. Oh my god.
And it was just like that. Like if that was like once or twice, I would be like, all right, it's a fucking anime. I get that it's a part of this crazy industry, but it was like a constant throughout the second half of the show. Like they kept popping up, and I was just like, come on, guys. Like I can't. This is.
Well, I think part of it is the sexuality of Japan in general, which like Japanese women have less boobs than American women have, et cetera, et cetera.
And like a fascination with innocence and purity that exists in Japan as well. But
yeah,
I don't know. Like it's not for me, bro. And so I was like, I love talking about this show with Kat because
but
like
then Bcom, they had so many cowgirls with the enormous giant titties.
See, that's what
the enormous giant
enormous
titties.
Tits. I hate enormous tits. I hate it. So I hate like a lot of hentai. I'm just like, this is the worst. Nothing about this is attractive. Oh man, so I'm just stuck in between.
With you on that part.
I'm stuck in between a cow and a mushroom.
It has no real substance, just like a lot of shows this season. So
yeah. So like, I thought it was unique and interesting, but I also just personally didn't. It's not my show, so I gave it 3 out of 10.
That's okay,
which is pretty low.
Can you not give it another point or 2 for
absolutely not
being really good to discuss?
No, it is just as good as Chihayafuru.
Okay. I think there's a little resentment there, but I understand it, so I'm going to let it pass.
Cool. So going by scores, Kat's favorite show this season was Eizouken at 7.5.
I would say that's not actually fair. My probably favorite show was...
Going by score. That's why we say
going by score, yes. But going by enjoyment, I would say Interspecies. But I understand that that's not a...
Yeah, that's different.
A quality show.
No, but that's good to make that.
You've
that
got
clear.
like every other show rated higher, except for Chihayafuru.
Yeah, for me, Chihayafuru at a 10. But if you want to consider that like my own personal bias, then my highest new show of the season is Eizouken at an 8.5. So yeah.
Okay.
My favorite show is Dorohedoro at 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And what was my second? It's probably BOFURI 7.5.
Was it BOFURI? But you also did you give something else a 7.5?
Nope.
It was BOFURI.
It was BOFURI. Yeah, I had Eizouken kind of low.
You did really like BOFURI, but I guess that doesn't surprise me about Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Bcom had it higher than I did.
Yeah,
that's true.
Is there anything else you guys would like to add?
No,
I think we have talked this season to death, but I'm excited to start talking about the new season with you guys in about a day or 2.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
we can work that out. I don't have too much more to watch. I did have to cross some things off my list because they either got canceled or delayed.
Yeah, I think I'm going to separate some of the shows in the next podcast out by like, all right, these are the delayed shows and these are the non-delayed shows. Like,
no, there are some shows where I was like, but I'm excited for a season 2 and they're gone now. So
I just marked them to make sure to prioritize the rest, but still talk about them on the next one. But everybody, we thank you for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe on to us to YouTube and get updates on new podcasts for videos. You can also find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher, and follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and other for updates as well. Come to our Discord because we have lots of fun and we post all kinds
We
of
do.
things.
We have fun.
Yes. And thank you for listening. So everybody, we'll see you next time.
All right. We
See ya.
will see you soon. Bye.